He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody. We appreciate your time. I missed. I miss. I guess I didn't know they were going to be doing the work and all this cutting stuff this early, but whatever. Hopefully they'll be done soon enough where it won't be too loud for too long. Um, Hopefully everything went well with everybody these last couple of days. I apologize too for people that I was supposed to, who were trying to reach out to yesterday, or who were trying to reach out to me. Um, Had some issues going on. Apparently, my phone put itself on like sleep mode or something, which I never do. So I don't even. I'm terrible at technology. I didn't even recognize this. I was going through the whole day just thinking, oh, okay, I guess so and so's not reaching out, and uh, and then trying to figure out like why nobody's responding. Apparently, it's because I set it up where nobody could respond. So I apologize for that. Had some issues going on personally that I had to take care of, but I will catch up. I think there's only a couple people I didn't catch yesterday. Prayerfully, all is well with everybody. We give all honor and praise once again to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Mind, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A and D. The letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's the healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we're thankful and grateful for everybody being on today, getting part of this FAQ series, part 30. And to Marshawn, Malcolm, Betty, Isabel, and Solomon, Daddy loves you much. To the ministerial staff, to the moderators today, for those who are part of SOC, those who are not, those is your first time listening, if this is going to be one time of many, et cetera, et cetera. We appreciate your day. I'm sorry I have a little weird setup today. It is what it is. But we're thankful and grateful to be before you one more again and just give something for you to meditate on. And in this frequently asked question series, a FAQ series, which you can always catch up on. All 30 parts are on a playlist in and of itself on YouTube channel, just like we have all parts of our Haven't Been Led as We Believe series and Revelation Revisited series and 12 Pillars of Wisdom series, et cetera, et cetera. If you just simply go to the YouTube channel, you'll be able to find out anything that you need to. And we thank you. We appreciate you in advance for doing so. If you're a Patreon member or interested in being so, only $5 a month gets you a little bit more extra that others won't get. And we thank you guys for being part of that. If you want to deal with YLP 83, if you want to help out with different things going on. By the way, brothers, don't forget this Saturday we have our men's meeting. So hopefully you'll be in attendance for that, especially that Saturday at 7:00 p.m. Eastern, New York time, I believe. And so we're excited about that, and being led by Minister Kevin in that area. Don't forget that Father's Day is approaching on Sunday. Don't forget that Juneteenth is approaching on Sunday. Don't forget that Minister Tamara's Born Day is approaching on Sunday. If though some of you have already reached out and showed young Master Solomon some love for his Born Day, which is going to be Saturday, June 18th. And as a reminder for those taking class, we will have marriage class live on Saturday. We shall not have the biblical law class live on Saturday. That will be via recording only for events and stuff that are going on with this Born Day. And so to make sure that I'm fair to the sisters, we did the brothers' marriage class live. So to be fair to the sisters, since we did that for the brothers, we'll make sure that we do marriage class live at 8. So it'll be 8 to about 8:50 or so. And we'll make sure that'll be live. Other than that, everything else should be as planned. And thank you so much. We appreciate you. So shalom to everybody. Long time no see, it feels like, right? Long time no talk to, having a day off. But thank you, Sister Dawn, for being on today with us. Brother Thomas, hello, how you doing? Shalom. Minister Tamara, how you doing? Pamela, hello, how you doing? Is it Ron is awesome, I believe. How you doing? Charmaine, how are you doing? Sister Beverly, Sister Sharice, Sister Kimberly, Jonathan. Uh, I am I am Tayana, okay, or Tiana. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. Thanks for being part of the community. Um, oh, no problem. Yeah, be careful at work. We don't want to get anybody in trouble. And thank you, everybody, for the love. We appreciate you. How you doing, Keith? How you doing, Blue Aries? Um, Christine, Sister Shantae, Sister Stella, Sister Betty, if I didn't say so already. Hello, how are you doing? Um, yes, I am Moorish as well. I comprehend where we come from on that. How you doing? FD, I'm not sure if it's FD Davenport, something like that. Thank you all for being on today. Hello, Jay, how you doing? Brother Jay. Okay, hey, how you doing? Sister Naya, hello to everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we're going to, as I said, continue this FAQ series. Let's get into this. So we want to talk today about something that we've talked about, people have asked about, or people have been saying, and people ask a lot of questions, but we kind of sort of get into it. So we'll focus today on, we're going to call it beastly constructs. And what I mean by that is the beast, which represents the government. If the beast represents the government, right? Then what are the constructs of said government? I'll try to remember that, Brother Jay. Okay, how you doing, Sister Bree? So, so we want to deal with that today. Let's see how much we can deal with these beastly constructs. Um, Very important that we consider this beast or this government. And very important that we see when it says be in the system but not of it. It's talking about being in the beast but not of it. You are in Western civilization. You are in whatever your country is. Because remember, Western civilization, so to speak, stretches worldwide. You can be you can be in Nigeria. You can be in the Republic of Congo. You can be in South Africa, and you still might see government officials with wigs on their heads, just as you would have seen with the Whig Party in American history, or people that were part of parties that go all the way back, obviously, to England, etc., England, France, etc., right? I really did not know they were going to be doing all this rise, and I got to talk to somebody. Anyways, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay. It shouldn't last that long. There's a lot of land, I guess, to take care of. I didn't know that they were supposed to do it at this time. But anyways, so um, we want to talk about these beastly constructs. Because even when you get down to the construct, there's we talk about like race as a construct, for example, which it is, and we'll deal with that today. But if we're going to talk about race as a construct, then why not talk about the United States Corporation as a construct? That's from the beast as well. Um, but before we talk about the United States construct, should we not talk about the fact that the people who came over here came from this thing called England and the British Empire as a construct, right? If we're going to answer correctly, right? If you're gonna answer correctly, okay, TC Brown, thank you. I won't say it anymore. Then, if you're gonna answer correctly, then, or you're gonna talk about these constructs correctly, should we not talk about it holistically? If we're holy, put a W before that H. Let's be whole in our assessment. How you doing, Sister Deborah? How you doing? Um, so if we're gonna talk about these constructs, we got to talk about all these constructs, everything that is constructed, everything constructed. And if you know how law works, you will discover that interpretation, there's only one interpretation, but then the construct is based off of interpretation, right? So when it comes to law, remember, laws protect your rights, and the beasts, the government, the system knows that too. Don't forget the person who spit out the people who made up the beast in Revelation 12 and 13. Don't forget that these people are people who are enamored with and worship the devil, worship at Satan, at Satan. And so they are people who are all about what he does, and they constructed stuff based off of what he does. So all these different issues that we're coming from, nobody wants to talk about the fact that we got to actually know that this stuff is part of somebody's worship service. It's either worship of the beast, because you're either in the beast, you're either of the beast, or you're of the Most High, right? You're either of the beast or of the Most High. We'll see it possibly when we get to Zechariah chapter 1, verse 20 in a second, right? But I'm gonna try and sit on this for a little bit. But I saw you put it in the Q&A box, just letting you know I did see the question, right? So if we're going to talk about these constructs, we got to talk about the origin. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, which means kingdom origins. If we can make it really simple, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We're not wrestling against whomever, right? Like we talked about with the whole thing on Tuesday night when we did the Patreon/live, and we focused in on what was going on. Hopefully you saw that Trump is not your problem, but the construct that Trump was over is your problem. right? Now, interpretation, there's only one interpretation legally. But when you're talking about construction legally, as far as a lawful or illegal case going on, what you're saying is that there's an interpretation as the foundation, and then people construct different things on top of said interpretation. How you doing, Sister Barbara? Right? So there's an interpretation that we have to figure out that allows the construct or the construction of whatever your social construct is, right? We're going to call it today a beastly construct because it's a government construct. Somebody over you constructed these things. For example, there is no such thing as an African American without people telling Jesse Jackson that you're going to tell black people that they are African Americans. Somebody gave an interpretation, right? Like we know an interpretation means that if we comprehend what an American is an original person from Turtle Island or from the Americas. That's what an American, the original definition of an American is. But we keep doing everything we can to redefine, right? Because America was fine. We were fine the way we were. But then somebody came and defined us. They broke down what we were. And then they redefined us. That's how it works in the construct. Something has to be fine the way it is. You study it the way it is, you see what it is, and you say, okay, how can I define it? See, once I define it, it's something I'm trying to take ownership of. And then if the people who are fine will actually come in line with what is defined, now I can redefine. And now we live by redefinition. Remember, TION is a person, place, or thing. It makes it a noun. Shion, right? That's why you don't say tion, you don't say motivation, you say motivation or motivation. You say that because you're speaking another language. That language is implying Latin, really, but French, Spanish, etc. It's implying that, hey, whatever word you're talking about is a person, place, or thing. So when somebody gives you a definition, what they're saying is, I took what was fine and I defined it. And once you agree with the definition, now they're saying we can redefine it at any time. So when somebody takes a book, like let's call it the Tanakh or Torah, and it was fine the way it was, and they come and they define it and they tell you now it's a Christian Bible with only 66 books. And this is the language that we say it should be in. And don't worry about what it was actually originally written in. And you accept that the way it is. Now we can what? Redefine. Right? Now we can redefine what it is. And that's a huge problem, is that we are stuck in the redefined, and we're not worried about just leaving stuff fine the way it is. So in the social constructs and all these things we talk about in the beastly constructs, we have to first figure out what was fine and why it got changed. You said, wouldn't it be great if we could just come into the world and live? Yeah, I mean, yeah, if the world were proper and stuff, or if we could just forget or not know these things, sure. Right? And how you doing, Sister Shima? So today we're talking about what beastly constructs, which basically just means what governs you, the government, the beast. What is it that's governing you if you're governed by the beast? Now, prayerfully, a lot of you are listening are not governed by the beast, or you're very interested in no longer being governed by the beast, right? But in this beastly construct, in this government construct, in this government system that comes over and over and over again, we don't want to talk about these things. For example, when you talk about your science, you use words. You use words. Somebody says, well, duh. No, I want you to think about that. You use words. Now, question is, whose words do you use? When you speak of gravity, what does gravity mean? And is gravity real? Now, somebody would say, of course, gravity is real. I mean, I can't just jump and float up in the air. Gravity is a theory that's trying to be used to describe what keeps you down. You're held down already. We're fine with that. We comprehend that when we walk on the ground, when we jump up in the air, there's something that helps put us in place, not just as far as this is what people don't know about the theory. It's not only what holds us down to the ground, it's what pushes us down, it's what pushes us up so we don't go too far in the ground, it's what keeps us from going left to right, it was causes inertia, there's a whole bunch of things. And so Sir Isaac Newton, he came up with a theory of gravity, but that theory of gravity was disproven. Matter of fact, by the end of his life, he didn't even want his name attached to the theory of gravity, but they still teach this theory in your classes, and they teach it to you as gravity being real. But gravity is not real. It's been disproven. Matter of fact, if you believe in the theory of relativity, Albert Einstein, he disproved that theory of relativity, disproved the theory of gravity. That's why it was such a huge deal. By the way, even that theory of relativity has since been disproven. And even the theory that disproved the theory of relativity has since been disproven. Meaning that you were speaking, talking about the gravitas or the gravity of a situation, and not recognizing that said gravitas is really theoretical and is a theory that even scientifically must no longer be used. However, they're going to teach you about gravity every day if you're going to school. You cannot answer a question truthfully in school. You must answer the false question in order to get a great score. Is that not so? That is a social construct where built into it is deception. You said we can only see the results of gravity, but to properly prove it's not so much. Well, once again, so somebody says the results of it, they see, that's the thing. We're trying to take something that's fine and redefine it. Because, like, watch this. When you go into space, let me take it a little deeper. How you doing, Benjamin? Brother Benjamin. Let me take it a little deeper. If we were to go into space, if you and I right now, we were to go into space, Amon, they would say that they would say that there's no gravity in space, correct? So what they would say is there's something called dark matter that holds everything in place, that makes everything move. And they would tell you that even though the word universe means a single spoken sentence, which means you can't have a universe without the one who spoke it into existence, they would at least admit to you they have now come up with something, a theory called intelligent design, to where the things that came out of randomness, where nothing came from something, called the Big Bang, which, if you actually know how that works, that comes from the Greek goddess Gaia. That's where the Big Bang comes from. But they will tell you that this Big Bang happened, and when the Big Bang happened, everything that was the explosion, not only explosion as far as molecules and gases and periodic table and all these things that came from nothing exploded. They also say, or evolved, right? They also will tell you that this intelligence exploded onto the scene as well. This is what they'll tell you. Now, in our Bible, it just simply says this: Barashit bara Elohim at shamayim at aretz. In other words, in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. That's the Big Bang. And if you want science, there was no form, right? It was gas. Then all of a sudden it started to cool down. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Confusion was darkness, because light and dark don't even come to the fourth day, as far as the way we look at things, right? So confusion was all over the place, darkness, and then all of a sudden enlightenment showed up. Let there be light. It's not light like the sun, because the sun, the moon, and the stars don't even come into existence until the fourth period of time, right? So let there be light was actually let there be enlightenment. And it was upon the water, when the water cooled down, because in our culture, in our system, in our kingdom, Mim, the 13th character of our alphabet, it actually means the water, the blood, and the spirit. The very blood that would cover you, if you know what Barashit means. Barashit literally is defined as the sun. It means in beginning, but it also means the son who comes out the right family, who's one with the Father, will be our head, therefore being destroyed for us, being led to the cross. Right? Being led by the Holy Spirit, of course. You have Trinity, you have all these things or whatever. So the Trinity shows up in the beginning saying that, hey, man will probably make a mistake, and just in case they do, there's already a cross set up in eternity to make sure that Yashvai would be there, because he's not thinking in temporary, he's thinking in eternity. He needs to make sure that what he said will go forth. Yeah, we always upload the stuff on the YouTube. You can always go up there and do so. Yep. And look at the stuff. So you got to look at these things, and it's telling you, right? This is your culture, but you look at somebody else and they're telling you, oh no, there was a Big Bang, intelligent design, Gaia. That's where it came from, Gaia. Gaia is the Big Bang. Look up Greek mythology, look up Greek history, right? That's his story, not our story. I'm telling you what he said, right? They told you there was a Big Bang, and they taught you in school, and you thought that it was scientific, meaning, and you think that science is separate from religion, because they told you they separate church from state. And so how could they teach you something that's somebody's belief system if they separate their belief system from the state? It's because that they're deceit. They're deceptive. It is a deceptive system. It is a beast. It is a beastly construct. We've talked about school. School is a beastly construct, right? You're not going to school to learn about self. You're not going to school to learn about financial empowerment. You're not going to school to learn about morality. You're not going to school to learn about ethics. You're not going to school to learn about business ownership. You're not going to school to learn about what money actually is. You're not going to school to learn about how to exchange it. You're not going to school to learn about anybody or about Elham. You are going to be told to say one nation under God, indivisible, at least when they used to have you do that in school. But they'll let you, but they'll keep telling you they're separating church from state or belief from state. That's what you think, and the reality is no, they're not. So in all this stuff, they won't admit to you. They'll say it's dark matter that holds it in air, this and that, but they won't admit. What about the person who spoke it into existence? If the Most High spoke it into existence, and he says he's the one that causes the sun to move and the moon to move and the earth to be in position and the earth to have a foundation and all these stars to be there, he's the one, without him, there is nothing. If you want to go deeper into that, we can even talk about how he uses melanin, which is what they really believe that dark matter is, but they can't tell you that. It's like when they say, you know, what is it? What's the term? See, I try to stay away from these terms so much that even kind of escape. Let me look up something real quick. I'm looking for a specific word. What's the word that they use? Because they don't want to use melanin. What is it when they try to say that we're dark skin, human skin color, all that? Sometimes they'll even say like melanocytes, but they don't want to talk about melanin. Really, they usually want to talk about what is the word that they use now? I try my hardest to stay away from it. Pigment. I don't know why that was so difficult for me. They try to say, oh yes, your pigment. Your pigment is all this or whatever, but they want to talk about what? Melanin. And everything that's alive has melanin. If you don't believe everything does, well, you'll say, well, what about plants? Well, plants, you're right. They have something called chlorophyll. Now look up how melanin and chlorophyll work and what they do in the cell and what they do and how they eat and how they cause the body of the plant or the body of the person or the body of the animal or the body of the insect, whatever, to function. And you will see that they work the exact same way. Well, hello, Charles. I don't know if that's your way of saying hello, but we can greet each other first. We'll say hello to each other. Secondly, if you say we blacks, wear suits. We blacks, which shows what the mindset is already. It's weird. It's interesting. But we blacks wear suits, which I guess is an overhyped statement because not all black people like suits. But okay, if you're saying that there are black people that wear suits as a cultural appropriation, I would say that if you want to take it there, I would say, sure, take the suit off because it's not yours. Where did the suit come from? The suit means something. Do you know that the tie, when you tie your tie on the suit, that it actually, like, I'm somebody who comes from the military, right? And before that, when I was 4 or 5 years old, my father taught me what it was to be able to press my own suit and stuff and wear it or whatever because of what I did. But if you talk about a suit, do you know, like when you wear a tie on the suit, the tie is supposed to be a symbol of the fact that like you would tie somebody's neck up during war to make sure, like, if they got stabbed or if they got their throat slit or something, so that you could help them to be able to try and survive. So maybe you don't want to wear a tie if you know why you're wearing a tie. Maybe you don't want to wear the cufflinks if you know that the cufflinks is supposed to be able to hold the frilly stuff that was be able to make sure that you could have drugs in there. Maybe you don't want to have the cuffs because of that. Maybe you don't want to make sure that you pull out the handkerchief because the handkerchief was used to make sure that you can go ahead and not only have a little bit of drugs, but also cover your nose and that stuff. Because guess what? Like, everybody smelled, nobody took showers at all. Great queens who were supposed to be the standard of European stuff, like these beastly constructs we talk about, like, great queens that were supposed to be these great people who in these pentagons of virtue who we were supposed to look at it as, or paragons, of virtue, we were supposed to look at it and be like, oh, they're so magnificent and so majestic. They would tell you that, yeah, they were better than everybody else because they took baths 2 times a year. So in that sense, yeah, cultural appropriation exists. Of course. It's a construct. It's a beastly construct or a government construct. People misappropriate or try to reappropriate, if you will, somebody's construct all the time. And maybe we shouldn't, especially if we don't know what it is. It's borderline disrespectful. Like, I'm Cherokee and I can wear a couple feathers every once in a while. I'll do it. It's not that often, but every once in a while I'll do it. It doesn't mean that I should wear a headdress. I'm not allowed to. And for me to do so would be disrespectful. I haven't reached certain goals. So of course, right? And by the way, let's talk about the fact why do we want to misappropriate it in the first place? Why do we look at the suit as a standard? That should be more so the question. Why is the suit the standard in the first place? Is the suit the standard? Should the suit be the standard? Why is it that people wear onesies that have flaps for their behind to be able to stick out? It's because a lot of people didn't want to be naked, and they thought that to be naked was bad, and they thought that like it was actually something that was going to let go of their spirit and stuff, and they weren't supposed to clean their bodies, and so they actually had that back there. Why would you wear something like that if that's not your belief system? Everything that's there is there for a reason. There's no random stuff to any of this. You said the buttons on the cuff is to prevent you from wiping your nose on your sleeve. Okay, I didn't know that. You know, like it's so we could continue to do it, but the question for me is why. And what see, and you got to comprehend, in a beastly construct, the construct wants you to be like the government or the beast. They want you to be like who's governed. Matter of fact, that's why you have governors. What was a governor's original purpose? A governor was sent somewhere because the king had to sit on the throne and stay on the throne, and the queen had to sit on the throne, stay on the throne. You sent a governor somewhere. The governor came after you had sent already missionaries, right? After you had sent missionaries, you would send the missionaries in. How you doing, Prince? You would send the missionaries in to take care of business first. And they would come with um, peacemakers, peacekeepers, right? You would call these peacekeepers, right? These people that are policemen now. That's some of where they come from, as well as you know uh, slave patrolmen, stuff like that, wearing the same badges and type of badges, things like that. But you have these peacekeepers, and they come with the missionaries. And the mission of the missionaries was to ensure that a certain religion, a legion of people that repetitively do the right thing, that religion was brought and put upon somebody else. And after that, you bring a governor, and he'd have more soldiers, and they would take over the land. And possibly he would have his wife and stuff like that, and maybe a couple of them had their wives, and then they would go and they would marry into the people or force people out of their marriages or whatever, but force them, and they would eventually have their own children and stuff, and they would bring other people eventually, but more so the people outnumbered them who were going to be the slaves, or who were going to be the captives, or who were going to be the mixed, depending on what culture you're talking about. If it's France, if it's England, if it's Portugal, they did things a little different, but you were going to allow them to do all those things, right? And then from there, you started to take on their clothing. Why? Because whatever the governor did was whatever the king did, and the slave culture and the indentured servitude culture and the serfdom and all these different and all these different people part of the culture were going to do what? They were going to make sure that they did their best to dress and act like the governor, because the governor represented the government, because the governor represented the king, and the king is the government. There is no government, or there is no kingdom, no king's domain without a king, and there is no king without a king's domain. So once again, you have to ask yourself, in this government, in this Western civilization, in this United States corporation, if you're in England, if you're in Portugal, if you're in France, if you're in Africa, like I'm sorry, somebody said Africa, okay. If you're in Kemet, if you're in Angola, if you're in South Africa, if you're in the Republic of Congo, if you're in Libya, if you're in Eritrea, if you're in wherever, right? If you're in wherever you want to call, right? If you're in Australia, okay, wherever it is, why is it that the suit and tie makes you more effective or looked at better than somebody else? You got to ask yourself, that's the question. Instead of are we misappropriating, the question is, why do we think it's appropriate for us to be better by looking in a suit? Or sorry, why do we think you are better looking when you put a suit on? That's more so the question to me. Why do you think you're better looking? Why do you think you're better suited for something when you have a suit on? To me, that's a better question. And it's beastly constructs. Why do we say, why are there even terms, even if we don't say them, but why are there terms that we know that we've heard and we know that people, our ancestors have used, like the white man's ice tastes colder? Why is that something that's there? Why are there terms? How you doing, Brother Dennis? Why are there things, yeah, Brother Dennis. Why is it that people have said things such as, you have to work twice as hard to get half as much? He said, what happened that they were able to subdue and colonize all these lands? I mean, what do you mean? What happened besides what's in books and things of that nature? I don't comprehend. You got to help me out. IDK fit is that I don't know fit. I'm not sure where to go with that. Besides what's happened in the storybooks, or even what's in his story and not our story, the story, or any story that you want to look up, I'm not sure exactly where we going. Are we trying to say that, or I just got to know where we're going with that. So no shade, hopefully none taken. Just I need to know where to go with that. That's a very, I don't even know. It's somewhat, to be honest with you, it's like an ominous question. And so I don't want to just assume that there's like beef with the question. So I just want to make sure I know what's going on. But yeah, like you have to, well, I mean, you can talk about gunpowder and all those things. There's a lot of things. I mean, if we want to talk about appropriation, one of the main things is that the same people who taught the oppressor then turned around and never gave this. So like they taught the people who taught the oppressor facts didn't give context. And that's the main thing. And we ourselves lived in facts without context as well. And we can talk about disease and all those things, but those are parts of it. I would tell you that it's basically you had a group of people that, like you I have to be careful with this because this is not every single person. See, once again, there's just these demonic or beastly constructs that have been made. So people go, white or black or do all that or whatever, and don't even understand, the construct of white is not something that, a black person made up. A white person, so to speak, made it up. And it was more so to make sure that even other white people would be subservient to them. So when you're talking about those things, you got to first look at who made up the social construct and why did they do it. Thank you, Bounty. Like, you got to look up who made up the social construct and why did they do it. Like, I didn't make up the social construct. Of course, Clarence, we have no problem with that. I have no problem with that. I just literally just finished saying, that I'm Cherokee and why I can wear a feather from time to time, but I'm not at a level yet to wear a headdress. So, yeah, we have no problem with that. He said, I was taught we were great kingdoms with our own beliefs and systems. So how did they take over? So once again, you're dealing with context. We're dealing with stuff where we had facts, but not context. Here's when I'm saying that in these beastly constructs, right? First of all, we didn't have something that held us together. Period. And by the way, it wasn't as simple as that too. Don't forget that Kush technically was never taken over until they allowed Marxism to come in. Right? How you doing, Sister Alicia? So until Marxism came in, Marxism was ultimately what would cause Kush to fall. Kush never fell because they were conquered physically. But you have different things, right? South Africa was some place to where they didn't necessarily take over South Africa the way people think they did until until like what, 2 kings removed from Shaka Zulu, right? And really, no, actually, I'm sorry. Even in that's when they had the great victory against England, and England had to come harder to be able to do things. But you got to comprehend there was facts without context. What do I mean by that? First of all, we got to deal with the fact that we as a people, if we just take it personal, because you got to take self accountability too, right? And thank you for the love, Lionheart. How you doing, Sister Cynthia? So if we take self accountability and we make it personal, we should always do that first. What could we have done to do better as a diaspora? Right? And when I say a diaspora, I'm talking all the way from Omek over to Kush and Kemet, right? And even further if you want to go up there, because if you keep going further, you got to admit that even Japan, right? When we talk about the Bering Strait, we only focus on Russia, but not too far from that, even Japan, that we're up there too, right? And even in Russia, if you want to deal with the mixes of stuff that came, especially when we came over to across the Bering Strait, then you got to deal with the fact that we're over there too, right? Which is why racism in Russia, although it's there, is definitely a lot different nowadays than what racism is in the what we consider to be the West, even though Russia is technically still the West. But we in our diaspora, one of the things that we did that was wrong on our end is that we didn't have things that defined us as a diaspora. We did and we didn't. We believed certain things, we did certain things, but we were busy not thinking of being united ourselves, if we can be honest. And that's one of the things that we messed up in. See, there is some truth. It's not as much as people try to tell us, which is, oh yeah, black people sold black people. So since black people sold black people, as if like we were doing the same thing they were doing. But nevertheless, if black people sold black people, then you can't blame white people for enslaving black people. That's usually the social construct argument that both sides are arguing, and it's a foolish conversation to really have, because at the end of the day, not all black people consider themselves to be one tribe, right? Like there are different tribes. Like there are thousands upon thousands of languages in Africa, even still to this day, after many of them have been killed off. Um, but there's still thousands upon thousands, just like there's thousands upon thousands of languages still in other places. Like there's hundreds of languages still in Australia. I don't think that the indigenous language has gone away. Now it's harder. There's not as many as there used to be, and there's a lot of people trying to go away from their language. But there's still hundreds of languages over in Australia. There's still thousands upon thousands of languages in South America and North America as well. Still, right? But we weren't grouped into protection of each other. We were so busy fighting each other. How you doing, Mayhew? And since we fought each other, people who fought all the time came over and said, "Hey, they just simply used what we were doing. They said, hey, instead of you guys finding a oneness in your diaspora, we'll cause you guys to just fight one against the other." The Dutch did it, right? Remember, on a lot of this stuff, when we talk about England and all this other stuff, and France and Spain and Spanish and Portugal and Russia and all these people and the Prussians, etc., like you got to first in Normandy as well, you got to always look at the Dutch. The Dutch usually did it first. If you want to know how somebody did something, usually study what the Dutch did. Right. If you want to talk about the East India Trading Company, look at the Dutch. I just forget what they call it, but it was something like the Dutch India Trading Company or something. Like you always can look at what the Dutch did first. Right. If you want to talk about how people are getting land as religious sects and stuff, well, look at the Amish. That's the Pennsylvania Deutsch or the Pennsylvania Dutch. Right. And even we're looking at getting our land, that we're looking at certain things that they do too. They did it first. They found a way to get it. Hey, no problem. Like the Dutch set an example on the positive things or even this negative stuff. Like if you look at them, they did a lot of stuff first. Matter of fact, when the Protestant or the people who you now call the Puritans, they weren't called it at the time, but the people who you now call the Puritans, they actually went over to Dutch land first. Didn't like the fact that their children were learning Dutch and looking like Dutch, and so they came over back to the king, who really wanted to kill him, and they said, please don't kill us, allow us to go over to America. And he sent them over there with a bunch of prisoners. That was their way. They didn't have enough, they didn't really have prisons and stuff back then. So hey, we can't kill all these people or whatever. They were killing children, hanging people. They were hanging people for stealing cups and stuff like that, right? So they didn't have space in prisons, and they didn't have it was a lot of money to even kill, but they were killing people to make examples and try to keep crime down. So if they couldn't kill you, they sent you to America. They sent you to North America, to South America, to the Caribbean, to Australia, all these places that they're at. These were criminals that were sent there. Criminals mixed in with pious individuals. These are the people who colonized. And these people who came over and were sent over even sometimes to enslave Africans, to enslave people indigenous to Australia, to enslave people indigenous over to the Americas, to enslave people indigenous even in European nations. Don't forget that in Spain, there were still people who were indigenous, because you go back to the times of the Carthaginians being in power, hundreds of years before Christ even comes. Some would say even 1,000+ years before Christ is even born. You still can deal with the indigenous who were there, because you had Carthaginians who even had a capital up in the middle of Spain. And don't forget about how the Moors had universities. 11 universities of the 13 universities in Europe at one point, 11 of them were in Spain, because that's where it was. You've got to recognize that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. And so when we say indigenous, you got to comprehend, like, black folk were indigenous to India. That's why Buddha is called the enlightened one. He called the enlightened one because he was what? Because he's part of the enlightened tribe. The enlightened tribe is a West African tribe who made their way over to India and had been there for years. And so he was the enlightened one out of the enlightened people. That's why he's called that. That's why when they fought, if you're still an American, right, or you United States citizen, and your people fought in Vietnam and are still fighting in Vietnam low key. But when they fought in Vietnam and they went over there, guess what happened? They started getting respect as black people. And they were like, why are they respecting us so much? And then they took them into these temples and they showed them these Buddhas, and the Buddhas looked like them. Now they try to lie and pass it off and be like, oh, no, those were just snails on his head. But remember, in India was taught by England too. And India was taught to hate themselves too. They already had sects. They already had sects sects. And they already had 4 different sects. But then they put a 5th one on there once the British finished with them and started teaching them. They called those the untouchables, the Dalits. That's you. People that were dark skinned, that were black. They said that you are low key, you were the low rung rather, you were the lowest rung. How you doing, brother TJ? And because they said you are the lowest rung, we can treat you however. And they still beat up our women. And there have been stories of them ripping women's arms off and cutting their arms up and stuff in public, and nothing happening to them, because that's the social construct, the beastly construct. So when we talk about these constructs, before we start talking about the suit and tie and all this other stuff, it sounds nice and everything is an argument until you recognize where did this stuff come from? Why? How could something even be appropriated? When did this behavior become appropriate? Has it ever been appropriate? And thank you, Maestro, for being on. Appreciate you. Right? Has this ever been appropriate? I mean, should we not ask that question? Why is that why are these things even appropriate? Why do we consider a dalit appropriate? Why do we consider it appropriate to fight one another? Why do we consider it appropriate to kill people? Why is it appropriate still for somebody, if they want to? Why is it appropriate still for somebody to hang from a tree and it not be a federal crime? But we've talked about Christianity, yeah. We just did a whole thing on Christianity. That's why I'm not a Christian. Most definitely. And even Christianity is what? It's a change. Christianity says that you can put in as many different things as you want. How you doing, Sister Carrie? Hopefully you're continuing on your path. Right? Sorry, somebody just tried to call in. So we're going to have some issues for a second. Right, but we don't want to talk about these things. We don't want to talk about these things. So before people start talking about appropriate or misappropriating things, once again, I need you to comprehend that when you're talking about a construct, that's what we're talking about today, beastly constructs, government type constructs, you must first recognize, right? You must first recognize that when we're talking about beastly constructs, there's interpretation. Interpretation comes first. This is law definition, legal definition. Interpretation, there's only one interpretation. Interpretation is based upon who wrote it, when they wrote it, where they wrote it, the context of what they wrote, the law of what they wrote, what did they mean, what was the language they spoke, all that. There's one sentence, right? There's a difference in between I love my queen and I love all queens, right? I love my queen is the interpretation. If somebody constructs something on that, they would say I love all queens, but that might not be the interpretation. Your construct might not be proper. It might not have proper foundation. Thanks for being part of Community Islander Vibes, right? There's one interpretation, but then there's a construct. By definition, construction is vastly greater than interpretation. Interpretation means I got to be laser focused. I got to be on point. Construct means I can do whatever I want with it. And we're dealing with a whole lot of constructs. See, it would be one thing if it was just one construct, but the beast has it set up where there's multiple constructs. Remember, Willie Lynch, 1712, tells you specifically that if people start that one of the only things that will cause people, well, first of all, the main thing it says is they reversed our nature. They said if men would ever go back to being allowed to be husbands again, then women would ever go back to being allowed to be wives again. And if men would ever strive to be husbands again, and women would ever strive to be wives again, he said that that would be the phenomenon that would turn everything on its head. And they said that the thing that has to happen is that for this stuff to start happening is you have to come into contact with yourself or with something that you can put some kind of actual value into. Right? Okay, IDK fit. You have to put some kind of value into it. So, like, if you find something that you see yourself in other words, your mind will say, wait a minute, I've been told that I'm not blah, 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 but I see myself in that. Right? Like, for example, wait a minute, I've been told that that Kemetic people, right, start with, Cleopatra, but Cleopatra's not even Kemetic. So wait a minute, if I see a Nefertiti, if I see a Thai, if I see a Tutankhamun, Tutankhamun, I'm saying that wrong, right? But King Tut. If I see Ramses, Ramses the second, Ramses the third, Ramses the first is Ramses the great. If I see Imhotep, if I see um, Shaka, if I see Shaka's family lineage, even going back further than that, if I know that, wait a minute, even the Mongolians are tied to me, and wait a minute, they even are tied to India, and they were the ones that had the last great Greek empire. And wait a minute, I know that Septimius Severus was an African emperor over all of Rome, and he had two sons that also sat on the throne as well. And Tutankhamun, that's what I was looking for. Sorry, earlier. All right, and if I know that King James actually looks like me, and his parents therefore look like me, and no wonder they didn't want the 1611 King James version to even be used, and it wasn't even used to the 1700s. And like when I start looking at these things, even though, in all fairness, right, King James was not a great example in how he lived his life either. But I'm just saying, when you start seeing these things, you have to start saying to yourself, wait a minute, these constructs don't make sense. And then it says in the Willie Lynch letter, just like it talks about in these curses, if you're not careful, right, in Deuteronomy 28, starting at verse 15, going through 68. If you're not careful, they said, okay, every time that they come into any knowledge of themselves, we're going to give them something confusing to cause them to not touch themselves again, so they can go right back into the same cycle, which is why you can't be of the system. This system is systematically, that means on purpose, it's systematically systemic. In other words, systemic means that it's something that goes on and on without you having to touch it. Systematic means they put it in place on purpose. So it is systematically systemic. These are what these constructs are there for, to where somebody puts something in place on purpose, to where all they got to do is touch a button, so to speak, and it'll move on its own. Thanks for being part of the community, closer to my dream. Appreciate it. I like the name, right? All I got to do is say one thing. All we had to, all they had to do to get you off of Russia for a second. All they had to do to get you off of high gas prices for a second. All they had to do to get you off of hey, where reparations at, Juneteenth is coming around the corner. That's what they're talking about, right? All they had to do all that was what? Hey, we're gonna make a television feature for you guys, right? And even though it's boring, right, we're gonna make it look really nice this time, and we're gonna say that we're putting Trump on a hearing, and Trump's not even there. Both sides aren't even being represented. By the way, I'm not a Republican or Democrat. I'm just trying to get you to think something's up, right? That's how easy it is. I want you to see that stuff is really picked up now to get you off track, right? People talk about, oh, there's been the 18 shootings since or whatever. Do you know that in all these shootings, especially the main two that they're talking about recently, there's so many that I can't keep up with them, and I choose not to keep up with them. If I'll be honest with you, I help out as much as I can, but I really don't have the time or energy to keep up with something like that, because a lot of that stuff is done purposefully. What do you mean? See, construct. They're constructing this stuff. I need you to see it's beastly construct. It's vile, right? But don't forget, the same people that are telling you, hey, we're going to try and work out stuff in law, and we're sorry, and we'll be better, and we need to make sure we take your weapons and all that. Those are the same people that did Tuskegee to you. Remember, they did that to you too, and we're sorry, and we'll be better. And hey, was it L Dog Star? I think it is. Thanks for being part of the community. Right? These are the same people that did that. These are the same people who did Rosewood, said, we're sorry, we'll be better. And they literally wiped out government officials and wiped out people, and had people living in graveyards for fear of their lives in Wilmington, North Carolina, and then wiped off not only the story of Wilmington, but they wouldn't even allow you to check out a book. If you were in a certain part of the country, you weren't even allowed to check out books on Wilmington, North Carolina until the 1990s, possibly. So for 100 years, basically, not only did they beat up Wilmington, but then they said you couldn't even read about it, right? We love to talk about Tulsa. Tulsa was something that we had to tell you in code what happened. We couldn't even tell you what really happened. How you doing, Authentics? We couldn't even tell you Tulsa really happened. You know how I know that we had to tell you in code about what was happening in Tulsa? Now it's something that's just out there. But you know how I know we had to tell you in code? As a people, we couldn't just straight up be out there telling you about Tulsa, because we were so afraid. As a people were so afraid. Like, that's how they had us. They were so afraid to tell you about Tulsa that they actually made up a song about Tulsa, Oklahoma. Who here knows the song? There's a song out, and you don't even know that they were singing about Tulsa. They had to disguise it as a love song. Lake Lanier, of course, right? But when Tulsa, they had to disguise it as a song. Anybody know the name of the song I'm talking about? I would think probably one person would. But it's not even that common knowledge, even though people have come out and said the truth about it now. Right? But they had to come up with a whole song. The song is "You Dropped the Bomb on Me, Baby. You dropped the bomb on me. You turn me on, baby, turn." That was Tulsa. Some people's minds, I can feel them. Yeah, the Gap Band. That's what that song is really about. They had to disguise it. How they were looking for this girl, right? Used to be the richest woman in the world and all that stuff, how fine she is and all that stuff. Then you dropped the bomb on me. It was a clever play on words. Couldn't even tell you the truth. Because that's how much construct is there. You were dancing to it all that time. They were trying to get you to dance to your story. Because it was easier to get you to dance to it than it was to tell you the truth. Yep, there you go. Greenwood, Archer, Pine Streets. I forgot the name. I'm glad you said that. Thank you, Minister Nice. I forgot the name of it. Greenwood, Archer, Pine. Greenwood, Archer, Pine. Those are streets. Or was it one street named Greenwood, Archer, Pine? I think it's 3 different streets. But either way, Greenwood, Archer, Pine. That's Gap. That's what he was saying. You said that. Yeah, okay, Dawn, you got it. I'm sorry, I missed you. You said it. They also called you a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, if you speak truth, right? We blast each other. We come against you. Oh, not again. They're talking about this stuff again. They always talking about it. Man, you guys won't let it go. No wonder you guys can't get it. You guys are victims. You don't want to be victors. You know, the same stuff they say about it. It's our people that say it because it's systemic. All they got to do is push a button, and we'll say the company line. That's all they got to do is push a button. They push the right button. You'll say whatever. You'll do whatever. Well, whenever stuff starts really popping and we start really needing to move on stuff, have you noticed every time that happens, that's when gas prices go up? But yeah, they push the same button every time. Don't have to work that hard. Thanks for being part of the community, John Blaze. Appreciate it, right? They don't have to work that hard. They know what this stuff is, and they know that we have been conditioned to it, right? But we got to redeem. Remember that you've been redeemed. Redeem means to be reconsidered. You got to reconsider yourself. You got to redeem yourself. See, they've already deemed you as what it is you're going to be. Watch this. If you're a Republican or a Democrat, and if you are, we're praying for you because there's a lot of bad stuff on either side. But if you're a Republican or a Democrat, let me talk to you, my brothers and sisters. I mean, my brothers and sisters, if you're trying to be one-minded, I don't even care. Well, let me never say that. Of course, I care about our diaspora. But even if you're not of the diaspora and you're somebody trying to be grafted, let me holler at you for a second, okay? If you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're in a bad place. Even our condition has been conditioned for real. Yeah, for real. Well, let me give you this. You ready? Hopefully this will bless you. You're in a bad spot if the Republican Party and the Democratic Party whole argument against each other is that you did more evil than we did. You're in a bad spot. Did y'all catch that? You're in a bad spot, right? You want to share that, tweet that, text somebody that, whatever, right? But you in a bad spot, my brother and sister. All right, shalom, Prince. Have a great day. You're in a bad spot, my brother, if you have made it a point to say that I'm going to support somebody whose whole claim on getting more votes is that we're less evil than you. Malcolm X said it like this: if you have to ask your enemy for a job, right, you're in bad shape. And we keep trying to put ourselves on sides and saying we don't have any other choice. We don't have any other choice. We have to join up with somebody. Thanks for being part of Community Destiny. We got to join up with somebody. You got to listen to somebody. You got to vote. If you don't vote, then what's going to happen? You've been voting your whole life, some of y'all. It feels like, right? And if you haven't been voting your whole life, you came from people who voted, and you came from those who voted by now, etc., right? And all this voting that's been happening, is evil gone away, or has it gotten more evil? If the answer is the second, then voting ain't helping. I'm on, but I'm on. Well, we try to make sure everybody knows that they're special. Amen. Right? If your whole thing is, if your whole thing is what, that I need to be on the side of less evil, then you've already lost. Going back once again to the beastly construct, the government construct. The government is using things, and you're trying to redefine. Once again, how do you get to the place of construct? How do you get to a redefinition, which is basically what these constructs are? You go to a place where first it was fine the way it was. Then somebody had to define it. That means they broke down what was fine. And now once you agree with what they broke down, now they can redefine it and redefine you. See, this is why you, in your greatest times in history, as a diaspora, you have only been what? You have only been kings, or you have been segregated, or you have been kings and queens, and you've been segregated. That's been when you've been at your greatest. I know you don't want to hear it, but you when you were chieftains, when you were kings, when you were queens, right? When you were emperors, you were at your greatest every second since, right? Or when you were segregated, you were at your greatest. Why? Because you had to have your own business. I'm not saying necessarily that we need to be segregated. I don't think that's the right way to go either, but to have our own land and then interact as we see fit, sure, we should be able to do that if we want. Nobody has a problem with Chinatown, does it? How many Chinatowns are there? How many Korean towns are there? Forgive my language because I know this is something that we shouldn't call it. I'm just calling it what people call it. How many Jew towns are there? Right? How many little Hades are there? Right? How many little Cubas are there? How many little Havanas are there? Okay, so we know these things to be so, and nobody's mad at it. But then all of a sudden, see, when you want to talk, especially people that want to get into their Bible, but I say this all the time, people who want to go strictly, and by the way, if you don't believe so, I've been proclaiming, I've been preaching you a word, even if you don't think it's biblical, because I ain't opened up and say, go to this verse or that or whatever. I'm giving you word right now, something that can bless you, and something that can make sure your people get, and something you can give to your children, because you need to start working on generational wealth, land development, food, things like that. That's why we keep talking the language we've been talking, right? But I'm here to tell you, that even in all those things that are going on, right, you don't recognize the power in making sure. Revelation 12, it talks about this woman. The woman is the same woman talked about in Jeremiah chapter 3, the same woman talked about in Genesis chapter 3. Revelation chapter 12, it talks about the same woman. This Israel, the same woman that has to be sealed in Revelation 7 is back. In Revelation 12, it says that the devil is sending his people towards it. That's the water that comes out of his mouth that's going to make up the beast. The beast comes out the water. The people are the water that the beast, the government, comes out of. And this water comes out of the mouth of the devil. These people wait for the devil to tell them what to do. And by the end of Revelation chapter 12, you will see that this woman needs to be by herself in this wilderness, right? Getting ready to go into this new kingdom or this land of Canaan. And she needs to be protected. And once she comes together, it says the Most High himself is now in a position where he has to keep us what? Together. But we keep being the same thing, going back to what somebody asked earlier about Africa. We keep being in the same position to where we keep trying to figure out how our tribes are more important than our diaspora. At some point, the tribes have to come together. At some point, right? You've been scattered long enough. At some point, you got to come back together. You know, at some point, if you want to read your Bible, read it, because it tells you what you need to do. It tells you in Revelation chapter 3 that you're supposed to be the teachers, because you are Yahshua. It tells you in Revelation 2:9 that there's some of y'all, or 2:9, some of y'all been in prison and stuff, and you've been focusing on that, just thinking you're poor, but you're really rich. It's in you. If you weren't rich, then why would they keep using your melanin? Why is your melanin one of the most expensive things on the planet? If you weren't rich, why is it that your sons and your daughters, they trying to find them when they can by themselves, and they taking their organs out, and you finding them with newspaper inside of them when they get buried? People don't want to go down this route. See, this is when they say you're a conspiracy theorist, but I'm telling you stuff that you could look up. You got to start asking yourself questions. I'm asking questions. Why? Why is that something that happens all the time now? Like, why is that something that I don't even have to look that hard to find? If I were to just Google child Black child found newspapers in place of organs. I could probably find 5 or 6 different articles pretty quickly. Exactly. We divided, we fall. But we're so into division still. Colorism and stuff still on the place. You know how them light skinned cats be. Well, you know, all these, you know, they ain't no good black men no more. Well, you know, all these black sisters ain't none of them submissive. Well, you know, as if, and even in that, right? Like we know that it's not submansion, it's submission. Women are not supposed to submit to a man. They're supposed to submit to a mission. If you have no mission, then they can't submit to anything, right? And men are supposed to love you as Yahshua loved the assembly and gave himself for it. That means that the assembly is constantly submitted to the mission of Yahshua. But if we don't know his mission or we don't care about lifting up his mission, then he's not obligated to die for you. He already did, but his dying for you don't even mean nothing if you're not going to be under it, which means that you can have a man that's out there killing himself on the job. But if you're not trying to help the mission of the family, then it means that what is he dying on the job for? We're dealing with the same stuff. I'm sorry, I'm out here with mosquitoes. Right? But we're dealing with the same stuff. We're dealing with the same stuff over and over and over again. Over and over and over again, because we won't admit, but these are the beastly constructs. Do you know that colorism was never a thing until somebody came over and told you that you were better or worse? Somebody else told us that. We didn't think that. If your baby was born and your baby was born with lighter skin, now I'm not saying they didn't treat albinos a certain way. We got to be honest about that and take responsibility for that. But, you know, it was okay for you know, it was okay for somebody to be a lighter skin, less hue, whatever you want to call it. It was okay. Now we say it against each other because somebody taught you how to do that. We never cared about that. Nobody cared about your hairstyle. If your tribe kept their hair short, then, you know, bless you. If your tribe developed it into locks, then bless you. If your tribe just let your hair grow, then bless you. If your tribe shaved their head, then bless you. Now we're sitting up there talking about, is it okay? Is it something that should help us to be able to get jobs? The only reason you think about that is because you don't own the jobs. Right? Yeah. Yeah, she never felt black, so to speak, even though, and speaking of her tribe or whatever, I would say that, you know, there's probably a little bit different than what she's saying, but I get as far as she meant like she never felt she had to identify as a people against other people till she came here. Yeah, nobody told her that, right? And our differences exactly were valued. I say it like this all the time. Imagine you have small puzzle pieces, right? Like you guys know, I don't know what they're called, but the stuff you spray with water, is it shrinky dinks? They used to be called something like that. And you spray them with water and this little small thing gets bigger and bigger, right? Well, imagine we used to be a people that were okay with being interconnected and intertwined, and puzzle pieces were there. So if you looked a certain way, if you did this, if you guys were shepherds, if you guys were known for being, you know, great in metallurgy, if you were known as the people who were highly educated, and you guys were the masters, and you guys were the people who were engineers, etc. Like everybody was cool. You just fit in together. That's what we did, right? We just all fit in together. But then what happened is somebody came and split you apart, right? Somebody came and said, hey, you know, you have beef with this person because of this and that or whatever, and we got beef with them too, let's fight. And you said, you know what, yeah, and you took your puzzle piece away, and they got all the puzzle pieces to come across, and then what they did is they sprayed all of them with this stuff to get us all angry and frustrated. They manipulated us first of all, and you know how, like, when you do a puzzle, if you want to be fair, first thing I do is I take all the puzzle pieces out, and I you know, mix them all together or whatever, and then I start flipping them over, right? But you mix them up so you can make sure that it's you know, it's harder to do the puzzle, to put it together, right? So they basically mixed us together while we were still not realizing how great and vast we were. And then instead of showing you how vast and great you were, they actually sprayed you with nonsense. They sprayed you with anger. They sprayed you with frustration. They sprayed you with nonsense. They sprayed you with colorism. They sprayed you with hatred one to another. They sprayed you with, hey, you know, black women don't do this, blah, blah. They sprayed you with all this stuff, right? And then when they did all that, what do? The shrinky thinkers, right? They get bigger. So now the puzzle pieces who are mixed up, we actually got bigger and bigger. Our differences became bigger. It was never a big deal for you to be a different color. It was never a big deal for you to speak a different language. Matter of fact, if you go over to many different places that our diaspora is right now, and people that aren't Americanized or aren't Western, you know, in the Western civilization as much as we are, as far as language is concerned, you'll find that it's not uncommon for people to speak 7 to 14 languages. and people that you wouldn't even consider to be the most educated. It's not uncommon for them to speak that many languages because that's what we did. You fit in, especially sisters. Sisters, usually when brothers and sisters got married, you speak two different languages and stuff. You would speak the same, but you'd have to pick up the language of your other person you were marrying into or whatever. And the women usually were better at it than the men because they're the ones that have to deal with children and have to deal with the other ladies more and stuff like that. And the men might have to go and do other things. It was part of our culture. We don't even think of that now. Now we're in so much in somebody else's culture. We say the same stuff. I was going to McDonald's the other day and I tried to order a number 12 and I couldn't get the number 12. And therefore, because the person, they couldn't speak English properly or whatever. It's like, why don't you learn how to speak another language? Thanks for being part of the community, Mozella. Like, why don't you learn that? Why is that beneath you? It used to be beneath you to not know multiple languages. You said, yeah, you greeted in 3 different languages. Yeah. And at least if somebody says, right, like it should be no problem for you to say to somebody, habare, jambo, right? Jambo mimi ni Kofi, for kukutana na wewe. Shalom, anai Kofi, right? Even other languages. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Right? Aquaba, actually. And then say, etese, right? That should be, like, it shouldn't be a problem for us to do that. Ni hao, namaste, peace, alam salaikum, alaikum salam, bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, right? Matter of fact, one of the things that you should learn anywhere that you go on earth, you should learn, this is KRS-One, right? KRS-One, right? Taught this to me, right? Not personally, but taught this to me. I learned it from him. He said, anytime you go to another country, he said, one of the things that you should always learn is this. One of the things you always should learn is this. He said, you should always learn how to say hello. You should learn the greeting. You should learn how to say your farewells. You should learn how to say please. You should learn how to say thank you. He said, if nothing else, you should be able to know that. You should learn how to do that. I'm sorry, the mocking voice came out. I apologize. That's not correct. That's not seasoning your words with salt. I should be better than that. But I'm just saying, it gets irritating. Can I be honest? It gets irritating when you hear people making stuff like that. And it's like, why is it beneath you to learn, to be educated? Right? Let somebody else. If that's their culture where they don't like to be educated, that's romantic stuff. You want to talk about romanticism. That's romantic to not have to learn other languages. Even though they learned other languages, they just only like certain languages. They only liked basically like certain Roman dialects. They liked like basically Italian, or what we know is Italian, even though there's different types of Italian too. But they basically like certain Roman dialects. They like what we call Italian. They like Latin. They like Greek. If it wasn't one of those, they called you a barbarian. Why? Because instead of saying blah, 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 they say bar, bar, bar. So if you were somebody that wasn't part of them, they'd be like, oh man, bar, bar, bar. That's all they do is bar, bar, bar. So that's what a barbarian is. You think a barbarian is uneducated though, because we've taken on somebody else's culture. Right? Is that Korean? Kamsa? I know kamsamida. Is like something like when we say that to certain Korean people that are, saying thank you or whatever, especially old school. I know they'll be like, they get really impressed and they bow to you and stuff. Like last time my wife and I did that, I think it was at I don't really use them anymore, but why am I'm sorry. See, when you're out the system, there's certain things that you should know, but you can't even identify with them anymore. Dry cleaners. I was at a dry cleaners, and basically we were trying to talk to them about getting some stuff done and resewn and things like that. And and we thanked them for their help, even though they couldn't help us. And we were actually watching at the time a Korean soap opera. And so we had learned some terms from watching that or whatever, and would say it to each other. And so we were like, yeah, kamsamida, and we bowed, and they were like, kamsamida, and they bowed down, right? But but that's something like that shouldn't be beneath you. You know what I'm saying? Like it shouldn't be beneath you to have multiple languages. It's amazing, and I'm not denying. Like we believe here in speaking in tongues, right? We believe here in speaking in tongues, right? We believe in speaking in tongues. We believe in it being part of our richness, as Sister Dawn had talked about earlier. We believe in speaking in tongues. However, however, I need you to comprehend that we're so enamored with speaking in heavenly languages, and we think that that's the greatest thing ever. And we don't even think about the fact that, hey, learn a few words from other places. It's okay to learn a few words from stuff that's down here so you can connect with people that are down here. You know, like find ways to resonate. There's so many people that are talking about, and I can't wait to get to heaven. Every day is gonna be like Sunday morning. That's their way of saying every day is gonna be praising Yah. Well, now why not praise Yah every day that you're out and about or in a boat, depending on where you are, right? I look forward to hearing things like accents and things like that. It tells me where people are from. I look forward to somebody saying something in a different place. Every once in a while, when I say something, I speak French or something to Solomon, or I speak, Hebrew or something, and even sometimes modern Hebrew every once in a while. But I speak and I say something to my son, and somebody says, "Oh, you speak da da da." It's a whole conversation. It's something that brings us together, and yet we have been told that. First of all, we should only learn a language that's not even ours. Secondly, though, we've been told we should only know one language. So that's what we identify with out here. Is having one is knowing one language and not even knowing how that language works. It's part of a beastly construct. It's a beastly construct, right? What once was fine, right? What once was fine has now been defined, and now it's been redefined so much that you're more into the redefined than what was fine. We're okay with it. The people that we learn from. Yeah, we're speaking American and stuff. Yeah, this is America, right? The people that we learn from, as far as even historically, the interesting thing you would find about them is that they didn't even go to school. School is a social construct. It's a beastly construct. It teaches you how to be like the beast. It teaches you to work and be a slave for the beast. That's all it does. I'm not even talking about, your modern people today who you're listening to. Your Tony Robbins. I don't know how much education Jim Rohn had or Napoleon Hill had and all these other people, but I'm talking about even those of you who like to listen to what somebody like Thomas Jefferson has to say. Thomas Jefferson came from a time where you just paid to get through school. He might have learned a couple things from a couple classes, but he didn't care about going to every class. He didn't need to. And the people that you're talking about, like, do you think? Let me say it like this for those of us who say we're in the kingdom, right? And I'm sorry, Minister Sonia said it once was a concern that Americans travel; they don't have sign in English. hmm I'm sorry, this thing is like moving all around on me. Teaches you to be in submission to the B system. Hey, how you doing, Brother Omar? Our minister select Omar. French was a challenge to learn, but class was fun. I'm sorry, this whole thing I got a weird setup today. And then on top of that, it doesn't want to work correctly. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that we're dealing with that we're not even aware that we're still dealing with. Um, but even looking at some of this stuff, just being a little more objective and being a little more honest. Oh, we have signs that are in other languages. Yeah. But like I forget, where was I going? Oh yeah. Those who say that they're in the kingdom. This is why we try to even have classes like monarchy. And people don't like to take the classes like monarchy, but that's some of the most important stuff. Because I'm telling you, I've said this before, you got all these preachers out here who will preach to you and teach and all this stuff. And you have all these people who say how educated they are, who are ready to preach and teach to you about how to fit in and all this stuff. And one of the things that's really odd, Napoleon was a lawyer. Yeah. A lot of people were lawyers. By the way, Clinton was a lawyer. A lot of these presidents are lawyers. But when you deal with this stuff, a lot of people don't know how monarchy works, right? And so when we teach monarchy, one of the things that we have to get people to recognize is that you have to be taught as a king or a queen. Question for you, kings and queens, those who say that we're kings and queens. Question for you. Do you think that kings and queens get the same education that you do? Because we be arguing over who has the best education and stuff. But question for you, kings and queens: do you think kings and queens are educated the way that you are? We're gonna think on that just for a second. I got to get some water real quick. I ran out of water. Salat, though. I just want to think about that for the next 30 seconds or so after I go and had to get some water real quick. But do you think kings and queens, that kings and queens get the same education that you and I receive? I'll be right back. So the question was, what do you think that kings and queens receive the same education that you and I receive? And of course, the answer to that would be no, they do not. Do you think that a king or queen can even be a king or queen if they can't even tell you what their lineage is? Well, they would consider themselves better than that, but they also have a different type of thing. They have to be holistic. If you're going to be a king or a queen, then you got to ask yourself, are you educated as a king or queen? And this is part of what happened when the person was asking about the African diaspora and all that stuff. We tried to teach kings or queens things, or we tried to teach whole people things, and we never taught them the context. We gave them facts, but never gave them context. And a lot of us have been given facts, but not given context. Um, these, I believe, were ones that even we were giving out for donations and stuff, or not giving. Well, yeah, we were giving out for donations, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, there's places that my wife would know better than I. She's a herbalist, so she makes sure that she keeps things on track. But I'm not sure exactly where we get this one from. We have this. I actually got a what do you call it? We got a copper thermos, some other stuff. We have a lot of stuff that's copper. Matter of fact, at one point we were looking at copper jewelry and things like that as well. Kind of slowed the pace on that a little bit. But going back into the kings and queens, right? And when you get it from somewhere, just please make sure whatever you do that you know is 100% copper. Not somebody that says it's copper plated or has copper or is copper, but make sure it's 100% copper, or else it could be something that's not worth its value. Some of the stuff that the plating could be over might still be great for you, but if you're trying to get as much copper as you can, you want to get 100% copper. But looking back on kings and queens, we taught other people. This is something that we have to take responsibility for. We taught people some of the things as far as facts. This is what kings do. This is what queens do. This is what society does. This is chemistry. That's where they get chemistry from, and things like that. But we never taught context. And you can't teach context without somebody living in context. You said, so you were wrong on education, but would think they knew the enemy. So I said, yes. I'm sorry, Minister Sonia. You said, I might have missed part of what you were saying too. You said, let me see. I'm having a hard time scrolling today. He said, so I was wrong on education, but would think they knew the enemy. So I said, yes. I'm sorry. You might have explained to me a little bit more, sis. Or excuse me, more Minister Sonia. Okay. So, um, yeah, because a lot of people have been taught do this and do that, but why do you do this or do that? Okay. In all honesty, Minister Sonia, I'd be saying so much stuff, I get lost. So forgive me. That's why we got to record these, right? Because I lose track myself. So forgive me. I'm just having a moment, a human moment. But we teach people all these different things, and that's my big sister. Whenever she speaks on stuff, I try to make sure I listen and stuff. She keeps me on track and keeps me. So, but I was trying to make sure I was answering it. That's all. But when we're doing these things, like, we have to recognize and realize that they were taught, like, we haven't been taught. We say we're kings and queens, but we don't get educated like kings and queens. or we get taught what kings and queens do, but you never do what kings and queens do. And that's part of what the problem is that we went to other places. We saw, for example, we saw that people weren't taking baths at all. Like, I ain't even mad. I mean, I don't think you should go this route, but I ain't mad at the person who's not taking regular bath, but you're not taking but 2 baths a year and stuff. Like, that's wild. You know what I'm saying? And so we went over there, we said it, but we didn't teach them while doing that. We didn't teach them that to be clean also means to be legal. So that they thought, oh, not just be clean so I can be able to conquer somebody, because that was the culture that they had. We never took into consideration, maybe some did, but we didn't really overall as a diaspora take over into consideration that when we teach you about cleanliness, we need to teach you about what is legal. It is lawful to be clean. This is why a cat will clean itself. This is why, even though people be like, oh, a pig will just lay in filth and blah, blah. If you give the pig an opportunity to be clean, a pig wants to stay clean. But if you make it stay in the mud, I mean, if it can't clean itself, it'll just do what it can. And also, you know, since it can't sweat and stuff, it might do some stuff like get in some mud, you know? But it doesn't mean the pig wants to be dirty, right? But it's a legal thing. It's natural. It's natural for this tree that I'm pointing at behind me. It wants to clean itself. It's a natural thing for it to do so. Believe it or not, it goes through certain things to cleanse itself. It's natural for the earth to want to cleanse itself. The earth cannot be legal if it does not cleanse itself. So it is natural from time to time for it to rain and for it to snow. Right? And it means that it's doing stuff that will kill germs and things like that, and will cause even animals and cause even us to go into places and to go inside and to say we don't want to be out in the snow and stuff, and give the earth a chance to fast from being stepped on and all these things. Like the inside of your body should be able to be cleansed every once in a while. You should at least stop eating the sugar, and at least stop drinking as many sodas, and at least stop doing as much bad stuff or whatever. Every once in a while, one day, just decide, you know what, I won't eat for 24 hours. Why? Because you give your body a chance to be able to cleanse itself. It's legal to do so, but we don't go through the action. See, we taught people to clean themselves, but we didn't teach them the legality, the natural law of things. Right? We taught people what it was to make sure that you were a monarch, right? But we didn't teach people that a monarch is simply a representative of the people and also a representative of the Most High. Therefore, being a conduit, a king or a queen that is worth their value is really nothing more than somebody that brings what the Most High wants to the people and brings what the people want to the Most High. A king is the greatest king, the greatest queen is a servant. The greatest master is a disciple. The greatest disciple becomes a master. And the second the disciple no longer has the goal of being a master, is the second that disciple will never be disciplined enough. And the second the master has no desire to be a disciple, is the second that master can no longer be qualified to teach. Salah. But we haven't taught kings. We haven't taught that anytime a king or a queen comes before thee, you should always give your gift. Whenever a king or queen comes before you, if it's not financial, fine, but you always give your gift. You always give your gift. You always give something of value. Why? Because if you give to a true king or queen, whatever I give to you, you're supposed to give greater. So if I teach you what a king or queen is, and then I give you something of value, my expectation is that whatever I give you as a king or queen, you will never allow me to outgive you. Because the second that I can outgive you, it means that you're not a king or a queen. So if I give you love, you give me love back. You give me love, I'm gonna give you love back. And it's gonna be this great game that goes back. And it's not a game of tennis to see who win. It's a game of tennis to make sure that we keep uplifting each other. And every time I think that I can't give you a certain amount of love, the Most High says, oh yeah, you can. You got more in you, got more in the tank, right? So if I go and I see a chieftain, the first thing that I am required to do is make sure that chieftain receives a gift from me. And even if it's not financial, I'll say, okay, chieftain, I have a gift of wisdom. Like, let's say I can't afford to give him what I really want. I say, you know what, chieftain, I consider myself, as far as kingdom, as far as our tribe, I'm considered to be one of the people who has a lot of value concerning certain wisdoms that we teach. I don't know everything, but I know quite a few things. I would like to be able to give a gift of wisdom. And there are a lot of kings or queens that would say, wow, okay, I'll take that. And they would ask me a question and they would say, I'm going through this or going through that. And they expect an answer. And if I give them an answer, then guess what? They're going to give me something greater. As far as what they consider to be greater, they're going to give me something greater than what I gave. That's how kingdom works. right? Added to abundance, right? That's how kingdom works, right? But we have so many people that say they're in the kingdom and are not trained to do that. Now that's how kings and queens work. If you're in training to be a king or queen, or if you're a prince or a princess, right? But if you're a husband, if you're a wife, guess what you should be? You should be a king or a queen. There's no reason why a wife should not be able to give to her husband and expect greater from her husband. And there's no reason why a husband should not be able to give to his wife and expect greater from his wife. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Y'all knew we were going to talk about marriage somewhere because we got to. It's part of the kingdom standing. But I'm a king, I'm a queen. Let's see if you do what kings and queens do. I've heard a lot of people say king and queen. I'm gonna see what you do with it. See, a lot of people want to be kings and queens, and they think that just means kneel down before me. Kneel down before me, peasant, and give me your all. Tell me how great I am. Tell me in the world. Give me all with all profundity and all clarification to ensure that you see the education of the people is based upon the infallible word that is every word that I speak. Make sure that you lift me up. Make sure that you conquer me. Make sure that you conquer all things through me. You don't go through Christ, you go through me. This is my house. This is how I shall rule. That's what you sound like. You sound like a movie. You sound you sound like a fallacy. You sound like something that is designed and doomed to fail and to fall and to be insecure. That's why you come off as insecure. That's what we sound like. Our motivational speaking has become nothing more than an exercise in, I was going to say something that I don't think is a pastor. This is the place for me to say it. Maybe I would say it on a teaching. How about this? We have become very great at stroking each other's egos. Maybe some of you know where I was probably going, right? But that's what we sound like. Motivational speaking has just simply become, because watch this, because motivation, people don't even understand motivation. I can't give you motivation. I can help you to motivate, but you're motivated by something already. Motivation or motivation means the person that's motivated, the place that, or the person you become, the places you've been to, and the things that you do due to the fact that you're motivated. So you have motivation already. You are motivation already. Something has motivated you to get to where you are. But motivational speaking has now become what? More of the same. Hold your head up, king. You are powerful. Queen, the earth revolves around you. If it was not for you, there would be no life. Recognize that everybody must bow down to you. I'm powerful. I'm great. I worked hard to be here, and nobody's going to take anything from me. Well, what if you do wrong? No, nobody shall take anything from me. I don't care what anybody has to say, and nobody has the right to tell me anything. I don't even care if you tell me that Yah said it, or God said it, or the nature said it, or the Spirit said it, or Allah said it, Allah said it. I don't care, because I speak to them for myself. So nobody can tell me anything. If I speak to the Creator myself, then who's going to tell me anything? But then you turn around and try to motivate me. This is scary time we're living in. This is what we sound like, right? And kings and queens without subjects. Now let me hip you to the game. If you're a king and queen, the only time you have an actual subject, see, I would see these social constructs, man. We could be on this all day. I'm trying to shorten it. I know we still got a lot of time for what we normally do. I'm trying to shorten it because we could be on this particular subject all day. Like no lie. Like one of these days when I have time, I will show you guys how long I could actually, if I wanted to. Like one of these days, we'll just do like maybe we'll do it as a fundraiser or something, and I'll just do a marathon. Like, because some of y'all, matter of fact, when we've done, we haven't done one this year. Maybe we'll do one where we'll do like, we even do like a virtual get together and stuff for donations and stuff, where we just have like we kind of go to certain things that we've written or talked about in the past and focus in on it. But going 4 hours, 5 hours for 3 days straight or whatever is not a problem for me, right? Like, this is my gift, so I can do this all day, even when my voice is going. I find that extra place to come. But what I'm trying to say is, as far as like people don't understand when we talk about kingdom subjects. The only way that you have a subject is somebody is subject to something, right? Subject to something, right? You have to be subject to something. Now, a lot of people don't know this, right? But peep game, peep game. What does the word ject mean? Ject. It's gonna mess somebody's mind up. You speak in Latin when you don't even know it. What is the word ject? Ject. What does that mean? The word ject. It means something that is thrown. To throw it, you can say to send it, sure, but something that is thrown. Matter of fact, sometimes even like the shot put type thing, and they throw it. That's a ject, even, right? So, right. So when we're talking about eject, right? Like it's to cast or to throw it, right? Sometimes there are words close to it, but even if you recognize, like a lot of people don't know this too, to cast or throw. So for example, even like another word that's kind of considered to be close to it and not the same word, but there's a word that like basically is you also can kind of say like a judge comes from this word ject. They're close. They're not really the same word exactly, but they kind of come from the same thing. Because in Latin, or you might be looking at stuff like yedex instead of ject or yect. Because remember, in Latin, there's no J either, right? So it'd be yect. So yect, subject, or subject is to throw something, right? So yeah, so you can inject. What are you doing? You throwing something inside, right? You can reject something. What do you mean? You're re-throwing it. Somebody threw it to you, and you're gonna throw it back somewhere else. You rejected it. So if somebody throws me a ball, I throw it right back to you. I rejected it, right? Somebody blocks a shot in basketball, right? You go up there, they say rejected, right? That's what ject means, Ject. So if you're going to be subject to something, you have to submit to that which is thrown, that which is given, that which is given in your direction. Like the Most High might rain down or throw something down to us. And you have to decide, will you subject? Okay, I see where it's being thrown from. Okay, cool. The manna, the manna is raining down from heaven. I'm going to be submissive to it. I'm going to be under it, or I'm going to reject it. I'm going to rethrow it. Hmm. Right? So subject. So you can't even be a subject if you don't even know if something's thrown. Can you be subject to something that's thrown and it hits you in the head? If you don't catch what's thrown, can you subject to it? Can you catch something that you don't even see coming or that you don't even know is coming? Hmm. See, but we are subject to this thing thrown, this beastly construct, these constructs, these governments. We subject all the time. But you can't be a kingdom subject if you're not submissive to what is thrown. It's like being in submission. Submission is not a curse word. Submission means identify the mission so you can be under it. If you're going to be a kingdom subject, then see how the king dominates or what the king's domain is, and then you are what? You will the king's domain is thrown at you. You're given a chance to be in it, and you can decide, right? There's an invitation thrown at you. You can decide if you will be subject to the invitation and come into the domain of the king, which is why any king or queen, see, we have to get this, except for our children. Our children are a little different. But outside of our children, anybody else around us, they have an opportunity to do what? They have an opportunity to be subject. That we throw them an invitation, and they have the ability to be what? If they want to catch it and to receive it and to submit to what was thrown so they can be in the domain. See, real kings and queens do not forcefully try to make subjects, because a subject should not be forcefully subjected. That's not having a subject. See, this whole thing, that's why your birth certificate is not natural law, because saying that because somebody's born somewhere means that they have to submit to what was thrown at them, it doesn't mean that that's the reality. Hey, they were an egg in the womb, right? Or next to the womb, whatever, right? But they were an egg. They were doing fine. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was some sperm thrown when they were releasing. They were on their way down the fallopian tube and everything, and there was some sperm that was thrown at it. Guess what? The sperm was thrown at it or whatever. That person should choose whether or not, now that they're growing, they have a choice to make. Will they be subject to what was thrown at them? It sounds odd, but I need you to comprehend the context. I'm trying to get you. So you think that a subject is forced, but see, no, subjects are people who have the right to choose. Subjects are people who have chosen to submit. What we try to do is force people to submit. But that's why I say, as a pastor, I'm not over people. If you want to be a subject of the kingdom, if you want to, in a sense, like we don't really have subjects, but in a sense, if you want to be a subject of SOC, Servants of Christ, the organization, whatever, you make a choice. I'm throwing out kingdom. And if you want to listen to the kingdom, if you want to abide in the kingdom, if you want to abide by the kingdom, if you want to love the kingdom, you have every right to submit to what is thrown. Right? And the domain is the domain of the king. Now, he's allowed me to be king over a domain, but guess what? You're kings and queens too. See? And so when you come into the domain, I'm supposed to be the king because my gift is what? Pastoring. Pastor means what? Heleth, assembler. I'm the king of assembly. So I assemble things. But that doesn't mean I'm the king of healing, right? That doesn't mean I'm the king of cleanliness. It doesn't mean I'm the king of technology. It doesn't mean I'm the king, right? Like other people can come in and be kings and queens over different things. And guess what? My goal, my puzzle piece is going to be assembly. So if I see that these things are pulling us apart, then that's when I step in. I don't step in to tell you have to do this. I don't look over your shoulder on every little thing. You will have autonomy as a king or queen in here because we are all over the same environment. But my responsibility is to make sure that the environment is kept together because I'm the assembler. That's what pastor means in our culture. So I'm the assembler of the environment. It's a different mindset. See, in the social construct that you've been in this beastly construct, pastors are supposed to be kings over you, which is why you are lay people, because lay people are supposed to be servants. Nicolaitan, Nicolaity, Nikos, conquerors, laity are servants. So pastors are supposed to be conquerors of lay people in this system. That's why you got to be in this system, but not of it. If I ever go into a church situation, I recognize when I go into that church situation, all the people in there are subject to the pastor. That's how it works. They've chosen. This is see, once you know how words work, you recognize them. Once you live by etymology, it's hard to come out of it. If you go into a situation where there's a pastor there, you have chosen. Even if you visit him, right? You make a choice. I will be subject to this. There's something thrown at me. I'll submit to it. So if I go into somebody else's place, I must recognize that I'm dealing with people who have submitted to this, and therefore in that environment, guess what? That's their king. So I go in it, but I'm not of it. It doesn't mean, though, that if that pastor says something bad, it doesn't mean I'm gonna stand up in the middle of his sermon and start telling them off. You know why I wouldn't do that? Because guess what? That's your environment. But if it's question and answer period of it or whatever, I might throw my hand up and ask a question and say, Pastor, why would you teach blah, blah, blah? Doesn't the Bible say da, 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 da? See, I know in the environment when it's time to do whatever, I stay in my lane, right? If I go in front of, if somebody invited me to go on television, I know there's certain things I would ask permission. What am I allowed to say? Can I do this? Can I do that before I even go on? Because if there's certain things I can't do, I might not be able to do it. Why? Because if I go on, I must be subject to the environment, just not at the expense of the kingdom. So as long as you say, I don't have to give up the expense of the kingdom, I don't mind being subject to certain things. If I were to go on to somebody's show and they were to curse, like if people have had me come on, they'd be like, oh, is it all right if I curse? And I'm like, man, whatever, do what you do. A lot of times though, because I'm so truthful with who I am, and when they meet me behind the scenes and stuff, a lot of times, guess what happens? A lot of times they will change up. They'll stop cursing. They'll stop drinking or smoking weed or whatever. And I'm like, you can do whatever. I don't care. As long as it's not like hard drugs, but like, you want to smoke weed, whatever. I don't care. It ain't gonna mess me up. Like I'm cool. I'm in my work. I don't have a 9 to 5, so I ain't worried about a drug test and nothing like that. Like my family will be fine with me if I come home smelling like weed. Like I'm okay, But they'll stop it. Why? Because they see what? They see that I'm in my lane, and in my lane, I'm constant and consistent in my lane, right? And so even though their social construct is different, they see that my construct is something that's not a beastly construct, but it is a kingdom construct. My being a king is what keeps me in there. Yeah, the respect. People respect you. And I know a lot of y'all probably deal with the same thing. People will give you respect that you don't even ask for. And by the way, you don't even think it's respect. It's probably going too far. Right? It's like there's certain things I'm okay with. Like there's certain jokes I'm okay with. There's certain movies you could watch I'm okay with, right? Just because it's not like my focus doesn't mean like you can't watch it. But people will stop doing things because of what they feel like it's respect, but they're doing it for kingdom. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, origin, kingdom origin. We're wrestling not against flesh and blood. And a lot of you are trying to get people to respect you, and you're not being kings or queens. People talk about the social construct of race. Race is a social construct, and it won't go away until you stop talking about it. No, race is a social construct, and it will not go away until you start acting like people who are bigger than that construct. That's when it goes away. See, for a lot of people, the only reason why they need to talk about race is because people go, well, you talk about race. Yeah, I talk about race. I talk about race because it's something that we talk about often and we need to say something. But the only reason why race is brought up the way that it is, like, even if social construct of race was to say you're black, you're white, you're yellow, you're polka dot, you're whatever, even if we brought that up, but there was no negativity associated to it, nobody cared. The reason why people care about it, though, is for some people to be white, it's the only thing they got. That's how they got the overseers to be over you. The overseers were poor too, but they were white and they were poor and they weren't slaves. So if they were white and they weren't poor and they weren't slaves, and guess what? Then they get to be over you. So they thought they were better than you. Irish people used to fight with you. Now Irishmen over in Ireland can't stand Irish people in America because they'll be like, you guys are utterly racist. And the Irish people are like, no, we have to work hard. Why can't black people work hard? And they'll be like, man, don't you know that we used to fight with black people and stuff? But what the Irish people in America forgot is that white slave owners said, hey, we want y'all to stop fighting with black people, so we'll make you guys white. Now you'll be low class white. You'll be nothing, right? But we'll give you a boot so you can at least pull yourself up by your own bootstrap, and someday you'll forget that you were even fighting with black people. And sure enough, some people got to be white because that's the only thing that they have. In Ireland, they look at you crazy, like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? They don't even consider to be Irishmen, an Irish woman. So that's nobility and spiritual leaders, our vibrations charge and direct others around us. Most that, right? There's some people, look, I told you I'm fine with being black, even though I'll never officially document myself as such, right? As far as the legal system, because in the legal system they say that black is an artificial person, right? However, I have no problem being black all day, every day, right? But some people got to be black because that's all y'all got. Like, blackness is a part of who I am, but it's not the whole thing. But some people, that's all they got. So even their spirituality has to be colored. Not cultural, but colored. Your spirituality can be cultured all day, but they don't even culture. It's not cultured, it's colored. All they got is blackness. Everything's got to be black, or else it's not anything. If you don't wear your hair the right way, if you don't wear the right color stuff, how dare you even use certain words? How dare you say understand instead of overstand? I overstand. It's no wonder you're not black. Like, their whole spirituality has to be about everything being, because that's all they got. Once again, I have no problem with being black all day. I'm trying to tell you, you're bigger than just. See, this is when we have to talk about some truths that are being put out there. There are some truths that you can be bigger. Your skin color matters because anything created matters, right? And melanin matters. And the more melanin you have, there's few things that you can do that others can't. Like, that's just reality, right? Like, if I'm 6'5", I'm 6'5.5", and if my son, is 4 foot whatever, there are some things that I can do that he cannot do. It's not because that he's a bad person. It's just because I'm 6'5.5", and but there's also some things that he can do better than I can because he can get things faster. He can go under things. He can do things or whatever. He can get through certain things in the woods we go through, whatever, better than I can, right? Like, we both have some things, but we don't want to talk about it. Some people, that's all you got. It's a social construct, and you're so much more. So yes, I'm black. Yes, I'm melanated. Yes, I have locks. Yes, I wear my clothes. Yes, I'm okay with my tribe. Yes, I know certain languages. But guess what? I'm also somebody who's caring, who honors, who's empathetic, who's things. And those things don't have to be based only off of being black. But some people, that's all you got is the constructs. Some people have to be feminist. You know why? Because some women don't know anything about themselves. So the only thing they can do is say, hey, we want what white men have. And we don't care if black women aren't represented. We don't care if Latin women aren't represented. We don't care if for those who even believe it, I don't believe in the stuff as far as not saying I don't believe in it. I feel all humans are humans, but I mean I don't believe that that's the way for you as your what you're created to be trans. But hey, even for y'all that are throwing out trans women should be represented and all that, they don't care about all that. Their whole thing is, look, I got this thing, this feminist thing, it got me where I am, I got power. There's some people that you got your job, and even though your job is killing you, you're gonna keep working hard to keep being killed on that job. Why? Because that's all you got. It used to be stuff like, we've heard in movies and stuff, and we laugh at it now when somebody says it, but it used to be that in our culture, we would say things like, we all we got. But now everything else is all you got. The system is set up that way. It's a beastly construct. How you doing, Brother Clem? It's a beastly construct. You think that the system is all you got, but it used to be we all we got. Now it's I'm gonna go to the store to get these ingredients. It used to be go next door and ask so and so for those ingredients. It used to be okay to be a husband and a wife. Now it's how dare you try to put me in a construct? I'm not even a man or a woman. It's a beastly construct. It's dastardly. It's evil. It's vile. Heck, it used to be we're working towards innocence in everything that we do. Now it's working towards what? Now it's working towards, hey, we'll vote for the lesser of two evils. All these things we've been talking about. It's a beastly construct. It used to be like I heard somebody doing this. I didn't put it on there because it's just a bit too much cursing. And hey, how you doing? My wife is on, the Honorable Maya. Thanks for being on. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She has a tincture of the month that's just for the skin, or not just for the skin, but does a lot of things for the body that helps out the skin. So we're grateful and thankful for that. And she's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. So check her out when you have the chance. And thanks for being on, babe. And it used to be that we were together. It used to be, even speaking of that, which my wife does, it used to be that you were about natural medicine, and medicine was food, and food was medicine. Now food is just something you have as a foodie. The tincture of the month is for skin and liver health, right? Now food is just something that you have as a foodie. Oh, this thing just tastes so good. Yeah, what's the medical benefit of it? Nobody. Have you ever gone to a restaurant and talked to somebody and been like, "Oh yeah, what you gonna order, girl? I'm gonna order blah blah blah." And has the conversation never been like, "Oh girl, you know what? It's good that you ordering blah blah. That's good for this and this and this." Or why are you ordering blah blah? Well, girl, I'm ordering blah blah because it's good for this and 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 it's good for this. We don't even talk about food as medicine. What is the value of it? Or somebody getting ready to order some, you go somewhere, you get ready to order some pasta. Nobody says, oh, be careful, it's sugar up in there. you know, or hey, when we go to a restaurant, hey, when we go to this restaurant, you know that everything on the item, I don't care, if they say, unless you ask for vegan, even if it's vegetarian, whatever, everything you get, and even the meat and everything, they're putting butter and everything on it. Especially the more expensive places, everything gonna have butter on it. That's what you craving for when you go there. You getting butter, and then they're gonna give you salt, and then they're gonna give you a little bit of sugar and stuff, and then you might get some soda and stuff, or you might get a drink that's sweet and all that stuff. They're gonna make sure the same stuff you get at the fast food restaurant, right? You're just paying more money for it. But you go to the fast food restaurant and you get kind of the same thing. Sugary drink, you're gonna get salty in your snack or in your fries, and they're gonna make sure that they give you some other stuff as far as in that meat and everything too. But we don't think about that, right? We don't go to the store and be like, you know what, I want to make sure my vision is doing well. So I'm gonna take the next 3 months and I'm gonna focus on things to eat that help with vision. I need to make sure that my liver is doing well, so I'm gonna eat stuff to help me with my liver. You know what? I need to make sure that my heart is doing well. So I'm going to eat stuff that just deals with the heart for a little bit. That's what I was saying earlier about teaching, or when we talked facts, but we didn't give context. Yeah, and a lot of us are just paying more. I'm not saying every time, right? Some of the times you're paying more because a real steak is worth more than the Angus burger, at a certain place, right? At like certain fast food restaurants. So I get it. But I'm just saying we don't even think about it anymore. We want to be kings and queens, but we don't do what kings and queens do. We want to teach kingdom and queendom, but we don't want to learn what monarchy is. We want to be monarchs, but we don't want to live as monarchs. We want to be separate of the system, but we're afraid of segregation. Uh-oh. And I'm praying for you and with you, Minister Sonia, because I told you about my little story about Pastor Hamilton had to point the finger out the other day. And ever since then, I've been on my grind to make sure that I'm not dealing with as much anywhere close to as many sweets, especially when I be on these on these roads. For sure, for real. Like I get settled in place and I kind of go back into healthy, and then I get right back on the road. So I'm gonna try. This is gonna be my first road trip in a long time, being honest with y'all, where I'm gonna be like, okay, everything. I'm not about to buy all these, like for real. I don't even know the names of all the candies and stuff anymore. But you be buying the my vices, Twix, Reese's, Kit Kat bars, which are almost all the same thing. I kind of eat them simultaneously, right? And it's always like I always make an excuse. I'm tired, so I need sugar, right? Don't be drinking soda and stuff that much anymore. All of a sudden, start traveling. I got to get Coke. It's the middle of the night because I don't drink coffee, and coffee's not that great for you anything. Well, coffee's probably better for me than Coke, but you just start making excuses, right? And and then even in the coffee, I'll usually drink it black. But then I'm like, oh, it's just one sugar, one cream. What is that going to hurt? And before you know it, boom, right? And you don't even need the sugar to cream. The coffee in and of itself is going to do what it needs to do, right? Or just eating healthy. Just starting to eat healthy. When I said, okay, you know what, I got caught, I'll just make sure I ate. And as soon as I did that, like I started waking up and stuff anyways. I had everything that I needed. But we don't eat that way. We don't even eat like there's stuff out there like getting ginseng. You need energy. There's ginseng in a lot of places that you pull over to. Or stop somewhere and get a bunch of it somewhere. You go to Costco and get all this stuff, and we'll just get a bunch of food. Well, why not get a whole huge thing of things that are healthy? There's canned stuff out there that's a lot healthier than what we get. You said sweets and coffee are your vices, yeah. And I even like I guess like I don't really know. I hear so many different weird things about coffee. I'm not even sure. If I be honest, I don't even know what coffee is. But long story short, like these things are being thrown at us as far as kingdom. We know these things are there. They're jacked, but we won't subject. We have a mission to be healthy, right? What is it that you hear even in the movies, right? They say, hail, hail King so and so, or here's King so and so, here's Queen so and so. What do they say? Long live the Queen, or long live the King. It's a mandate that you would live long. It's a mandate, right? Like you're talking about, man, these days are terrible. Well, there's a commandment that your latter days will be greater than your former days. There's a commandment, right, that says that the suffering of this present time is not even worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed, right? That the future is where you need to get to. So long live the Queen, long live the King. Pass these constructs to tell you that sweets are more valuable or even cheaper to get than it is for something that would bless you and allow you to live, right? Long live the King, long live the Queen. Your goal should be able to live long enough to see the things that are behind you not be worthy to be compared to the things you're going into. You said dandelion and chicory helped you? Yeah, that's a great combo, right? Hear what I'm saying, right? I want you to catch this. Long live the Queen. Long live the King. I've got to live long to be able to see what the vision is. I've got to outlive thy vision to get to the vision. I've got to outlive his story to get to the story. Really, if you want to put it this way, I got to outlive his story to get to his story and his glory, right? I've got to outlive. Long live the king. Long live the queen. Start thinking about how to outlive where you are. It's a mandate on your life. Do you know that there are people that are depending on your vision coming into place? Live long enough for them to see the vision. They've seen you crying about division. They've seen you crying about your family not being in place. They've seen you worried about struggles. They've seen you worried about concerns. They've seen you have to try and figure out how to make it off the street. They've seen, okay, fine, outlive those things so they can see the grace of the Most High. Long live, outlive where you are. You know, we say it the negative way all the time, but I think we should start saying some positive ways too. You know how like children will come to you and they be talking about all these things, and they'll be like, well, I don't know this and I don't have problems and blah blah, or and they'll be like, and you say, well, keep living, right? You'll see some things, and children will be, I want to be an adult, and you'll be like, you don't want to be an adult yet, right? Even though that's what they should aspire to be, is to be more mature and things of that nature. They should already be an adult by the time they hit 16. Right? But we said no, because we're in the social construct of the world, where we say, oh, now the brain development doesn't even start happening until you finish until you're 30 and 40. No wonder this world is so messed up and so chaotic that you're trying to make excuses for yourself to where we will say that, oh, and I'm not saying a young girl should be messed with just because you dress a certain way and all that. I'm saying we try to make excuses to where, little girls are okay. Right. And I know, like, I was called, like, little girls are okay with making bad decisions, right? I'm not saying that you can't make a mistake. Hear what I'm saying, right? I know somebody don't want to hear this. I know it's going to hurt some people because of the social construct that's out there, this beastly construct. But guess what? 18-year-old girls shouldn't be doing some of the things that 18-year-old girls are doing. I'm not saying that we should blame them when they get in trouble, they get killed, somebody puts their hands on them, they get groped, something inappropriate happens already. But what I'm telling you is that 18-year-old girls should not be doing what they're doing now. Matter of fact, they should be 18-year-old women. They should be 16-year-old women, and they should be protected. And they shouldn't feel like they should even have a sense even that they should go into some of these places that they're going into, but they're not outliving. They're not trying to live in kingdom, in queendom, in perfection, in maturity. They're trying to live in the world. And so they keep living in the world. It's a perpetual cycle that keeps you in the same place, that they're living in a place that tells them that 40 is the new 20. That means that a 40-year-old, see, ladies, y'all don't want to hear this, but if you're trying to say 40 is the new 20, what you're trying to say is that the 40-year-old woman should have the mentality of the 20-year-old girl. You don't want to hear that part. You just want to hear about your body. But if you are so concerned, which, by the way, ladies, your bodies are fine at 40. If you're not married to somebody, or if you're not trying to get with somebody who's actually a husband, and you're not trying to be pre-qualified as a wife, and your mentality is I need to get with somebody that's thinking that my body at 40 should be the same body that it was at 18, and that my body at 60 should be the same body that it was at 30, and that my body at 80 somehow, some way should be looking like it is at 50, well, then you are not in a relationship that's of value anyways. And you're not going to be somebody valuable to your spouse if that's all you see in yourself to be able to give to them anyways. Right? You have a baby from me as a husband, your body can have some indicators that show that you had a baby. It's okay. All right. It's definitely okay. And if you can't find somebody that's able to deal with that, then you need to figure out why you're trying to look for that person in the first place. Maybe you should stop trying to find that person, and you should start trying to be in places where the other brothers are there, because real husbands are not looking for things that don't, like, watch this. Maturity means, see, a gray hair, a white hair, it means that you, like, we can talk about, yes, there's unhealthiness and stuff like that too, true, but also we comprehend that some of those things happen because of these sinful bodies that we have. So since we're growing in age, if I get to a place where at some point you start to show that you have gray hairs, then all that shows is that you are more mature, and I see therefore that you're actually being perfected in your soul and in your spirit. You said, "He who finds a wife finds a great thing, obtaineth favor from the Lord." So that means that the man has to search. Yeah, but at the same time, fine. If you're looking for a husband, right? Because in our culture, husband's supposed to be pre-qualified, which means that at age 16, you would already know what it was to be adult male. At age 19, age 16. So age 13 to 15, you would be trained on what it is to be an adult male. At ages 16 to 18, you would be trained on what it is to be a husband. Ages 19 to 21, you'd be trained on what it is to be a father. Then we would give your inheritance, and then you would go do your thing. Okay, so you would be in your work. Your goal as a man would not be looking all day long for a woman. A man's in his work in our culture. Now, if you're talking about something outside of our culture, that's different. But a husband is already pre-qualified before he's even married, right? He's already pre-qualified. He's out there in his work. He has to be qualified as a husband before he can even find a wife. Just like you should be qualified with your permit before you start getting your license. And then you still, right? And even some places, once you get your license, they say we're going to watch you for a year before we say we give you your permanent license. So you have to be qualified. And in our culture, you're supposed to be qualified, even biblically qualified. So he's going to be in his work. And guess where Adam found Eve? He found her on the inside, so to speak, but he found her in his work. He was doing his work. And in the midst of doing his work, one of his qualifications, one of the standards that he had in his work, one of the things he's supposed to get done every day is that he looked over and he said, I see all these animals. He named them. He authorized them. He gave them Shem, and he authorized them to be what they were because he was already a wife to the Most High. And so him and the Most High were one. Whatever the Most High said, he as a wife was going to say the same thing. Whatever he said, the Most High as his husband was going to say the same thing. He already knew what husband and wife was, but realized on a physical level that there was nothing worthy of being his helpmeet or his wife. As soon as he found that out in his work, that's when the Most High said, now I'm going to go ahead. Remember, Adam was even created outside the garden. He was made in Eden. It was created outside the garden. He was made in Eden. Garden was created. Adam was put in it. Once Adam's in his garden, in his work, establishing what he's doing, then all of a sudden he realizes in his work what he needs to find. The Most High creates Eve, or Chava, or Chavavach, and now you have Adam and Eve. Right? Totally different context. He's in his work. Just like, for example, when you say who finds a wife finds a great thing and obtaineth favor from the Most High, right? And by the way, when it says a good thing, it means a constitutional thing. So he who finds a wife, the wife must be constitutional, right? The wife must be constitutional. But look at the verse right before it. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. Qualification for the wife. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. And those that love it or enact upon it will eat the fruit thereof. So if you're speaking positive or speaking negative, right? The husband should be looking for a wife that speaks positive. That's why when he finds a wife who speaks positively, he finds an amazing thing and he obtains favor from the Most High. But we think that just means, oh, the husband's supposed to look only. That's not what it's saying. There's a whole set of verses that goes with it, right? But the beastly construct or this new social construct has us in a different place. How you doing, Cash? Right? And so that's how those things should be flowing. Amen. My wife said Adam had an Eve for place to even come, right? Like he should be going to a place of preparing himself. And this is how it works even too. So when Adam and Eve get married, I'm sorry, when any husband and wife got married then, and we're talking biblical times, so we're trying to put these worldly constructs on biblical kingdom constructs, right? So we're trying to use beastly constructs to explain worldly constructs. So let's go even deeper. Husband and a wife, they get together, right? Because even remember with Ruth saw what Boaz was doing. She put herself in a position where Boaz would see her, where he would find her, right? So both of them had to be where they were supposed to be, right? However, when you go deeper into our culture, what happens when they're going to get married? What happens when they're going to get married in our culture? They go and they meet each other's parents. The parents have to be in on it, everything like that, right? Everybody has decided, yes, we know that that's a wife. We know that that's a husband. Okay, cool. Then they actually go and get documented already. This is why I remember when it says Joseph found out that Miriam, right, that Mary was pregnant with Yashva, and Joseph thought, didn't get yet. He hadn't had any confirmation of any type that this was Yashva was born of a virgin, right? Because remember, certain people, they try to lie. Like, by the way, can I just hit this real quick? I know this is a side point, but let me just hit this for us real quick. You'll have people that'll be like, well, that a virgin doesn't mean that she didn't have sex. It just meant that she was a woman that was chaste, that was pure, that was virtuous. That's what they try to say, right? So you'll hear a lot of people say that, which means that there wasn't any virgin birth. That's what they try to say. Problem with that is that Joseph was going to divorce Miriam because Miriam was pregnant. And in his mind, he said, well, then she must have had sex with another dude, right? That's what he did. In his mind, he's like, she had to got pregnant, but it said he loved her still. He said it said he had a deep love for Mary, and since he loved her still, he was going to divorce her, but he was going to do it in secret. He was going to do it where nobody else did it, right? So anybody who comes up with that and it's like, well, a virgin doesn't mean that they were just, well, don't forget that Joseph was going to put away or divorce his wife, even though they hadn't had sex yet. So in their culture, you're not husband and wife until you become one. So he was going to divorce her in private, which means that in our culture, you got when you got betrothed, then that's when you went and you got your stuff signed. Remember, in our culture, that the two people would actually go. And by the way, the Europeans in general, took this to a whole nother level, right? To where they would actually watch the sex happen between the husband and wife for the first time as like a group, or um, or at least they'd have certain parties watch, especially if they were royalty, to make sure that they conceive or were trying to conceive a child. That was that important to people, right? But we didn't do all that. But in our culture, you wouldn't have walking down the aisle. You would have a marriage feast and stuff. You'd have a party. In the midst of the party, the husband and the wife would get up and they would go somewhere and they would have sex. And then and then the father, the bride, would go in the room and he would come out with a sheet and he would show it to everybody. It would have the blood of her, and it would have the semen of him, which is the blood of each other going into each other, and that was the contract. And anytime from that point on, the husband wanted to get a divorce from his wife, he would have to actually go to the father of the bride, and he would have to prove to the bride's father, who had that sheet, that he would pull up her innocence along with his innocence and say, I have this innocence in front of you that you both gave up as a sacrifice. You sacrifice your innocence individually to become one and work on innocence together. So show me why you need to get a divorce. Right. So that's how powerful it was. So Joseph and Mary were actually when they were actually betrothed. That was when they got their paperwork. But Joseph was going to get that annulled, basically, because he hadn't had sex with her yet. She was pregnant. Okay. Hopefully we're all on the same point. I know it took a little sidetrack, but hopefully you got that right. So he was going to get a divorce. And then what happened? Oh, then all of a sudden he had the dream, and the Most High sent an angel to talk to him to tell him that no, like Miriam is in fact impregnated by the Holy Spirit, and so this child is Yashua, and you Manaval, and you must take care of him, okay, and help him, etc. So that's why they stayed together, even though she had her first child without having sex. So when people say that, but in our culture, you must recognize that this is what happens. So you get betrothed, you have paperwork when you get betrothed. The woman would then go away. So she was supposed to go away and go to the Wailing Wall and go with her friends, and she was supposed to cry out and was supposed to talk about the fact she's going to give up her innocence and all that, and then supposed to prepare herself for her husband based upon some of the things that the family was going to say, and her mom was going to teach her and stuff. She was going to prepare herself. Like 10 virgins got the oil in their lamps and stuff, and they were waiting. They're supposed to be prepared, so when the husband came back, they would be ready to go. Right? That's Matthew chapter 25. We'll go to John chapter 14. Beloved, which is devout, or David, let not your heart be troubled. You believeth in Elohim, also believeth in him. In my father's house there are many mansions. If it was not so, I would not have told you. Right. The mansion is an add-on to a house. That's why no man knows the day nor the hour except the Father is telling you about the culture. So while the wife, she's already qualified as a wife. She's already signed a document as a wife. She just hasn't had sex to become his wife officially, right? So that there'll be a new document, that sheet. So she goes away to prepare herself. He's preparing himself, but he goes back to his father's property. He already has property of his own too, but he goes back to add wealth to his father's property. He adds on what's called a mansion. He builds on to that property. He adds on another part of the house. And so he puts a house on the house. And his father is the one that's going to tell his son how to build it, what to build, how much money to spend, etc. And his father's going to be the one to tell us when he's not going to buy the house, right? So therefore, when you deal with that, you're dealing with what? You're dealing with one. What is it that I'm saying? I'm sorry. Oh, you're dealing with the one. So you're dealing. Oh, hold on one second. So you're dealing with the one father, right? or I'm sorry, you're dealing with a father who is basically um, going to make sure that he makes sure his son's house is in order. Once the son's house is in order, then he's going to say, okay, son, now go get your bride. So that's John 14. Go to Matthew 24. Sorry, John 14. Okay, son, you finished with the mansion. Go get your bride. Walk back up to what? Matthew 25. The bridegroom's coming. Be ready. Up, five of y'all didn't have your lamps together. Those five didn't make it in because you were supposed to prepare yourself for your husband. And so if you came back and you're not prepared, it shows that you guys really aren't one. And so now he's going to go away, right? So Joseph would have gone away to prepare a place for him and Mary, right? And then him and Mary, he would have came back for his bride. But before he could come back for his bride, Mary was already pregnant. He's like, what happens here? Where they do that at? Right? Man, okay. I guess we got a problem here. I guess she's not ready. I came back. I didn't even have a chance to come back. Apparently she's pregnant. Right? She's supposed to be preparing herself, but she got pregnant. How does that work? And he had to have a dream confirming to him, no, she's still preparing herself. Matter of fact, she's preparing herself in a manner in which is going to be, she's carrying the greatest child that she'll ever come into existence. Right? It's a whole cultural thing behind it. So when we talk about that, and we're like, oh yeah, find a wife, find this, blah, blah, like we don't even comprehend the culture. We're going by somebody else's social construct. You said, where does it happen at? You know what I'm saying? That's real. Like as a husband, if I'm sitting up there, like, and if I'm sitting up there and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we had sex, but you pregnant somehow. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, I don't know where they do that at, but they don't do that here. So something got to happen. Something got to happen, right? But that's somebody else's social construct. That's a beastly construct, not a kingdom construct. In the kingdom, marriage is sex. Sex is marriage. You have to be pre-qualified for sex as being a husband and a wife. If you're not a husband or a wife prior to marriage, then guess what? You shouldn't be married. You shouldn't be having sex. And if we're taught that, then it makes a lot tough differently. But the law is not even the law. Even the law says that. The law says that they won't recognize your marriage until you've consummated. But they don't make sure. But they don't teach you. But they don't teach you, and all that stuff in sex ed. A lot of us have probably taken sex ed at some point. Maybe you were blessed enough where your parents said you didn't have to take it. But a lot of us took sex ed, right? If you took sex ed, how many of y'all were taught in your sex ed class that sex is marriage and marriage is sex? That's true too. Joseph was a great man. Some men would have gotten violent. Some men would have done what he was going to do, which is get a divorce. Matter of fact, some men would have just got a divorce in public and stuff. Remember, it said he loved her enough that even though he thought she had cheated, he still loved her enough where he said, I'm going to take care of this privately. We don't talk about how amazing a father and amazing a husband Joseph had to be at all. We could probably do a study on Joseph that would blow some of you guys' mind. And Joseph had to be somebody that kept the law too. Remember, he had to be the father figure, which shows how important it is, ladies, that even if you don't get with somebody later on and you got children, please make sure you get with somebody who's an outstanding father figure. But a lot of us, we're not taught. A lot of us are not taught those things, right? But husbands and wives is a whole different culture. That's why people in America or people in a lot of Western societies are like, I can't believe that there are people that still do arranged marriages. That's because you think that dating is a thing, but you don't even realize that dating is outdated. It literally has the word date in it. You're dating somebody. You're dated. There's a date that you're going on. You don't even need to know the person. You don't have to know anything about it. They just have to ask you out, and if they do it in a proper fashion, whatever that is, then they get to have a date. One date. They get to go on a date. And if that date goes well, then you get to set up another date rather than having the mindset of being with somebody eternally. It's temporary. Arranged marriages are holding. By the way, you can choose your spouse, right? In Israel, there were people that chose who they got married to. So I'm not saying you got to have an arranged marriage, but I'm saying that the reason why people are so against arranged marriages is because you think you're supposed to date. That's the only reason why. Amen. Yeah, Joseph. You know how much Joseph. See, this is cultural. You know how much, and I'm just going off of what my wife said, but you know how cultural it is to be able to comprehend how much Joseph loved Yashua. How you know he did? Because Joseph was a carpenter and Yashua was a carpenter. And in our culture, Once you hit about age 7, your education, at least as far as work is concerned, whatever daddy does, if you're a male, right, whatever daddy does, you're going to do it. So Joseph made sure that he was a carpenter, Yashua was a carpenter. So he took him on as his own. And he was his firstborn. He treated him like his firstborn. Even though he had other children that were of him, he treated Yashua like what? Like he was his firstborn. Which means that Yashua would have even had an inheritance. A lot of people think that Yashua was just poor, busted, and disgusted all the time because they don't really talk about him because he doesn't have a love of money. He has money, but he doesn't have a love of money. A lot of people don't think about the fact that Yashua was a carpenter. You know, carpenters made bank. Also, too, Joseph was a carpenter, so you know he made bank. It doesn't say he couldn't afford a hotel that night. It said that all the hotels didn't have any room. But a lot of people don't know that if hotels didn't have rooms back then it was a normal occurrence that, okay, well, if we got to sleep out in the manger, we'll sleep out in the manger. It doesn't say that Joseph couldn't afford a hotel. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't recognize, they try to say there were only 3 people, you know, the 3 kings found him, you know, when he was born. People don't recognize it because we don't read our Bible that much. People don't recognize that the night that Christ was born, 3 shepherds found him. But the kings, it doesn't say there were only 3 of them, by the way. Some people would say there were hundreds of them, right? But the kings, the magi and others that found him when he was 2 years old, they found him 2 years old when he was in Kemet, hiding in Kemet with people that looked like him. And when they found him in Kemet, it said that they gave him many gifts, which means that from his childhood, he's a king. From his childhood, he is a king, was given all these things because there was a prophecy. Remember, they went to Herod, and Herod knew of this prophecy, and these magi knew of the prophecy, which means even outside of Israel, everybody knew the prophecy that there was this child that was supposed to be born. See how they try to make it look like, oh no, it was just a biblical thing, or you just making it up, or why didn't the world know about it? The world knew about this. Everybody knew. There was supposed to be some king that was coming, and he was going to be born. And so people came all the way from the east. People coming, some people would say as far as India, some people would say coming, you know, from definitely from East Africa on up. Some people say they come from West Africa, some people coming from China, whatever. And they went, and there was a mass of people that traveled, and they came to Herod. Herod said, if y'all find them, I'll give y'all this and that and whatever if y'all kill them for me. And they laughed at him. You know, one of the reasons they could laugh at Herod is because they made just as much, if not more money than Herod, because they were kings. Right? So they went on this huge crowd or this huge journey, and then they found him when he was 2. And then they gave him stuff. And by the time he was 2, right, they found him hidden. By the time he was 2, they made a big deal out of it or whatever. And by that time, it was okay for him because Herod's whole thing of trying to kill him off and all this stuff like that, all that stuff was done away with. So guess what? Now he can come on back. And he ends up coming back later on, even though it's still years later, but he ends up coming back later on. Amen. Thanks, babe. You know, he was able to come back. See, that's the cultural indicator. We don't even know how this stuff works. We just hear stuff. We just go away. You know how many people still think that the 3 wise men, even though there's way more, but they think there's 3 wise men that showed up on the same night he was born, or that the 3 wise men, 3 shepherds are the same people, or that there are 3 wise men and 3 shepherds. They show that in y'all nativity scenes that people love to go see. But go look at those nativity scenes. You'll see that those are not biblical at all. If anything, if you want to utilize it, fine. Show them in a manger. Show Miriam. Show Yashua in swaddling cloth. Show Yosef or Jacob. Yosef or Joseph in the position that he's in to make sure that his wife is taken care of. Show 3 shepherds that would have came upon them later on, and show the sheep that would have been kept outside the manger and not made their way inside. Right? But there's a mistake that's made when we think that Christ was poor, or he hung around only poor people. He didn't mind hanging around poor people. Remember, you know, Matthew's a tax collector. Matthew had bank. Remember that there was another forgive me. There's wow, why am I forgetting his name? He rose so and so from the dead. His friend. No, that's not even the name of the person I'm looking for. Who's the person? What's the name of the person that basically went to, because he had money and power? He was an Israelite, and he went to see. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He went to see Pontius Pilate and asked for Yahshua's body. What is his name? I can't remember his name right now. Is it Lazarus too? It is Lazarus as well. I was thinking it might be Lazarus because Lazarus that died, he brought back, and then I think the Lazarus was the guy that he went to see, that went to see about his stuff, or maybe it was just, I don't know. I'm forgetting the name, but regardless, there was a guy that was rich. Like Yashua had, even though he wasn't concerned about it, and he didn't really go around spending it or whatever. Matter of fact, he would have left it with his mom and with his brothers and sisters. Why? Because he was not going to be here that long. It wasn't a concern for him. He was thinking about generational wealth. See, like I said about race, some people need to be black or white or whatever. Even though I find nothing wrong with being black, but I'm just saying some people, that's all that they got. They don't even develop themselves past that. The reason why you got spending problems is not because you got bills. For some of us, if we be honest, the reason you got spending problems is because you think that buying things makes you who you are, or you think that having money in your pocket makes you who you are. A lot of y'all, that's what y'all think, right? Okay, it was another Joseph. It was Joseph of Arimathea, right? Arimathea, excuse me, right? But a lot of people are out there to buying stuff because they think that's what makes them who they are. Yahshua had bank, and he had all the cattle on 1,000 hills. His father created the universe, right? Like it don't get no better than that. That's why the Satan, the king, Chatan, someone would even say, the devil came to him in the wilderness, and what did he say? Turn these stones into bread that you can eat. Not just because you're hungry, but because look, whatever you want the stones to be, they'll be there. He was saying basically, look, go outside of natural law, cause something that's not even of the will of Yah, right? It's not something that you're supposed to do, but at the same time, you have the ability to change whatever, manipulate whatever. You can genetically modify these stones that might be able to eat them. He told him why it's not written. What is written was more important than what he could afford. See, people don't think about miracles that way, but a miracle is what can be afforded. Uh-oh. Why couldn't they cast out a demon? Remember, they were sent out two by two, 35 groups of two, sent out. They were doing all this great stuff, speaking this great word, people letting them in. They were even healing people. They were even casting out some demons. They got to a certain demon they couldn't cast out. And they couldn't cast it out. They said, Yashua, we can't cast out this one. And what did he say? He said, man, y'all, how long I got to be around y'all? Y'all don't have any faith. And he went and he cast out the demon. And then they said, wow, Yashua, what? How come you could cast out the demon, but we couldn't? He said, well, this one was dealing with stuff having to do with what? Prayer and fasting. In other words, maybe y'all weren't prayed up enough, but y'all definitely hadn't fasted. You couldn't afford it. I've already prayed and fasted. I prayed and fasted enough for this one. Y'all wasn't ready for this one. You haven't paid in enough yet. You think about tithe as far as money and this and that. You haven't tithed your talent, your effort, your energy, your gifts, your study habits. He said, you ain't giving enough. You can't afford this yet. He said, I can afford it. That's a miracle. You can afford. See, a lot of us can't afford to do miracles. Now, some of us are called to do different things. So I'm not acting like everybody out here got to be able to raise the dead and do stuff like that. I've never raised a dead person, at least as far as I know. Right? Maybe we spoke something that happened and matured or something, but I don't know anybody that I've actually ever been like come up. But I've seen people do it, and I'm not talking about the people that are on TikTok and stuff like that. I mean, well, let me be truthful. I know of people that I've seen the video and heard the stories and stuff, didn't believe it and stuff, met the person and then met the person, even came back or whatever, and even had doctors or whatever that were there to tell you that they actually got the bodies, that the body was dead or whatever, that the person was dead, not just dead. I'm talking about the person was dead, laying dead, was supposed to be getting ready to be prepared to be able to, be put in the funeral parlor, and somebody who had a radical faith walked up in there. And you got to have a radical faith to do that. Walked up in there and touched them and told them to get up and watch the person come back. That's some stuff that people don't believe. So I'm not talking about going to some show and I'm talking about there's people out there that can do that, right? We all have different gifts and callings. I'm not saying we got to do the same thing, but what I'm saying is a lot of stuff we consider to be miracles is because that's somebody else's social construct. They think it's miraculous to do what you should be able to just do. There's some people that think that it's miraculous the way that you think, but you just do it. There's some people think that it's miraculous that you came out of your situation, but you just do it, right? Because that's your gift, that's your calling. Some people think it's miraculous that you survived, but hey, I've survived 100% of everything I've been through. Why is it surprising to me that I would survive something else? I've never not survived, so why would I not survive this? Some people think it's miraculous that you would heal your body by eating natural food. That's not miraculous. That's our nature. That's our culture. Where was his stepfather Joseph? Joseph by that time is probably dead. Right? But a lot of people think that people don't get it. Like, yeah, I am a miracle, but I'm a miracle according to you. In the kingdom, though, this is what it is. Dr. Laya Africa said it all the time. The things that are considered to be miracles to other people, that's our culture. That's who we are. They call you a miracle, right? And they should call you a miracle because you don't make sense in their construct. But in the kingdom construct, how could you not make sense? How could you not make it out of being homeless? I mean, you come from a culture, you come from a family where you've had two of your people, bare minimum, have walked on water. See, this is when it goes from being just motivational to becoming cultural now. See, you've already been motivated. See, motivation once again means you are a person, you're in a place, and you're doing things due to what motivated you. See, it's not miraculous that we would meet up because game recognized game, kingdom recognized kingdom. Magnets have different polarities. We have different things that we bring, but we attract because of those differences. This is not new to us. It is marvelous in our eyes. Don't get it twisted. But it should not be news to us. It should not be new. It should not be something that a medium has to always tell us to go between because we should be locked in and connected with the Father. This should be nothing more than to build up who you already are. Education, once again, our working definition is I'm reaching inside of you. And I'm pulling out what's there, and I'm saying, you see what I got right here? You see the greatness. You see what the Most High did for you. You see what you deserve. You see that you have the kingdom in you. You see what your gift is. You see what your calling is. You see all these things, and really the list just keeps on going and going and going, right? And it's hanging all the way down to the ground. And we agree. We say, yeah, okay, we both see that. Okay, cool. Let me put it back in you real quick. Okay, cool. All right, now let's work the rest of our time and our season together to make sure that you hit those things that we saw. That's not miraculous to us, but in somebody else's culture, it becomes miraculous. And so at some point, you will get over being a miracle and you'll just be a miracle. That's a right. That's a word for somebody right there. At some point, you'll stop surprising yourself because you are yourself so much. At some point, it comes to look, if I am greater, right? If he that is within me is greater than he that's in the system, and therefore I live separate of the system, so he that is in me always operates correctly, then at some point I won't be shocked that I look different than everybody else because I'm not supposed to look like them. At some point it clicks where my children should act different than everybody else's. At some point it clicks that it shouldn't be surprising to me that my hair is what everybody else wants while telling me that that same hair won't get me a job, but that hair will get me a work. It should start looking different to me at some point to where, like, when they say that hits different, yeah, everything I say, it should hit different. It's not because I'm better than anybody else. Matter of fact, the opposite is because I've submitted to the mission. That's called submission. And because I've submitted to what's been thrown or I've invited to do, that's subjection, right? And because I've subjected I'm in subjection with affection, in submission to the mission. And therefore, I will never go into remission because I've lived here too long. I can't go back now. I'm dedicated. Even if people came against me, even if for some reason everything fell apart from me individually. Now, I would never let it fall apart from my family, but even if things fell apart from me individually,
individually, I would still never go back to the world because I've been over here too long. Y'all saw me earlier. I'd be struggling trying to remember. I'm struggling to remember again. What was I struggling to remember? I was talking about the Korean people that we said come samida to in the dry cleaners. Like, I don't even remember. I used to go to dry cleaners all the time. Why would I go to the dry cleaners now? Y'all be seeing me sometimes when I get on here. At first, my clothes be wrinkled up at first because I'm not concerned about making sure. Why? Because guess what? My clothes will eventually become unwrinkled as I wear them. If somebody sees me in the store and says, "Ooh, his clothes are wrinkled," so what? What does that mean? You see what I'm saying? I know some people want to be like, well, I'm make sure I iron your clothes, you steam your clothes, right? If I ever do business with certain people and I get certain contracts, I know I got to iron my clothes. But what I'm saying is, I'm not even in that system enough to have to worry about that, y'all. I'm not even in that system enough to have to worry about that. It's not my concern. So why would I know those things? See, and people would be like, well, that's separation. How do you know you're separated? Like, how do you know you're separated when you don't even care? Right? I'm not trying to say clothes wrinkled makes us holy, right? My wife is laughing. Yeah, she said I had her buying 200 irons and steamers. Yeah, and at one point too, it was not just for my stuff too. I was making sure her stuff was done. Everybody who was wearing anything, if my child was wearing something, whomever, right? Everybody was going to come out of the house looking pressed and neat. But that's because we were in a system where that was required. You couldn't just show up looking any kind of way. You got to look like they say in the suit and the tie and all that stuff. You got to be immaculate, right? But when it got to a certain place where that's not my concern, guess what? Like, and I'm traveling all the time, and there's a lot of times, like there's sometimes I'm traveling and legit because of how busy I am, I might get somewhere in the middle of the night, realize every minute of sleep counts, get there at like 2 or 3, and say, you know what, I'm gonna just put my pants on and I'm gonna just have my shirt on and stuff because I'm gonna roll out of bed and I'm gonna have 15 minutes. They're gonna get a wash face, a quick wash up or whatever, and I'm gonna just be in front of them. And after that, I might take a shower afterwards. But I'm trying to get some sleep, but I'm not concerned about it. See, in somebody else's system, you'd have to do that. But and I'm not trying to say just wrinkle clothes. This I'm trying to get you to comprehend. Like, we've been part of this demonic construct, this worldly construct, this what we're calling today this beastly construct for so long that we don't even think there's anything else. I'm just trying to give you a sign, right? It's not my concern to do certain things. I'm not worried about certain things, right? Like, I'm not concerned about. I'm not trying to say I shouldn't worry about it at all, but I don't watch the news trying to figure out how many of us got shot today. I'm not saying I shouldn't be concerned about it at all, but hear what I'm saying. I'm not really sitting up there all day talking about how many people got shot today. You know why? Because I'm not part of that system. I'm trying to be a conduit so anybody wants to come out, but that's why I'm not concerned about saving the world. Nowhere in scripture does it say you are the hero of the world. You are to so save the world. It said they're supposed to see you, but they're not. But it's not about saving every single person in the world. You're in the world. You're not of it. If you want to, when I finish with my dealings in the world and I come out of her to settle for the rest of the night out of it, if you want to come along, come on with me. Right? That's the goal. But a lot of us are out here trying to save the world. It's because you think you're still part of it. And it gets hard because I get it, because we're watching family members out here struggling. And when family members aren't doing what we want, or when exes are doing what we want, or when our children are doing what we want, we go, oh no, this is terrible. Like, I got to make sure if they don't do better, then it's going to be my fault, this and that, or whatever. What if it's not your fault? Could it be possible that you're trying to take on responsibility that's not yours? Could it be possible that you're trying to be accountable for something that you shouldn't count for or account for? Hey, how you doing, a little goat? Right? Like, could it be possible that you're trying your best to account for something that's not for you? And it's hard, but once again, you got to get used to it. I'm used to living a life that doesn't match up to the criteria of the world. Why? Because the criteria I have, it shouldn't match up. It actually is above it. See, we keep talking about conquerors, right? We want to talk about conquerors. But what about these white folk that did? What about Trump that did? What about Biden that did? What about the Democrats that did? What about the Republicans? Do you not know you're more than a conqueror? Did you know that? Do you know that Revelation starts talking about the conquerors and overcomers are trying to come at you and stuff? And so it tells you got to be more than that. You are more than an overcomer, because overcomers exist in the world. They exist. There's people out there in satanic situations, and they overcome. You got to be more powerful than that. You said, is this still part of FAQ series? And so, yeah, this is number 30. This is number 30. This is one from today, from today's date, whatever today's date is. Even sometimes I don't even remember what date it is, in all honesty. I remember the dates based off of holy days now. It used to be that I thought holy days were Sunday, right? I used to treat Sundays like Shabbat. My wife can tell you, I used to be able to tell you any time, any date, anything coming up, wherever it was. I could tell you 2 years ago what happened because I was so infatuated with Sundays that I could remember everything by all the Sundays that I had to do. Now I barely remember what day it is. Well, she said maybe I remember the days, but it's not like what I used to. I promise you, because I used to know every Sunday, and I had to write out lists for churches and stuff, and who was preaching, and who was teaching, and who was coming, and what music was being played, and all that. Because I had my hand in everything, right? Probably too much so, but I had my hand in everything, so I had to know every little detail about all this stuff. Especially when I went from just being somebody helping, but I was basically like I guess you could say the interim, but really it was more involved in that because I was trying to stay and help somebody as they were getting some stuff done in their personal life, right? But I'm trying to tell you, I can't even do that anymore because Sundays don't mean what they used to. Matter of fact, they mean what they always meant, but now I actually live by what I know they meant. And Saturdays, even though technically that's not the day either, but at least I'm trying to treat it culturally as Shabbat. So I've reversed it. It used to be I tried to figure out how to make Shabbat fit into Sunday through Saturday. Now I try to make Sunday through Saturday fit into Shabbat. Right? Right? It used to be that way. That used to be what I was trying to do. Was I was trying to make everything fit into the world. And that's what a lot of people are going to do. A lot of people today, you're going to try and figure out how to make Yahweh fit into your 9 to 5. And the goal should be at some point, not retirement, but the goal should be, how can I get into my work that I'll never retire from and still be able to make sure that he covers me? As a matter of fact, here's the deal. If you would just get into your work now, once again, you got to consult him. I'm not trying to have somebody say I quit because Kofi told me to quit. That's not what we're doing. All right, I'm making a point to say this, right? I'm not here to give you to tell you financial stuff, this and that, or whatever, even though I don't mind giving you biblical advice, if you wouldn't call it financial advice, but the Bible does talk about finances, right? I'm not here to tell you that giving you legal advice, even though we don't mind talking about sovereignty. What I'm trying to tell you is this, and all these things that are going on, is that you got to learn how to reverse it. We think that the kingdom needs to be fit into the world instead of trying to figure out that what is everything that I'm doing, does it fit into the kingdom? And if I'm going to deal with the world, I got to be with the world on a limited basis. I got to be in it, but not of it. If I'm in something, it means I spend less time in it than what I'm of. Right? So a lot of people look at this. Look at the schedule in your life, in your personal walk, in your personal life. How many people go to church total in a week? 3 to 4 hours a week. Now, how many days? 7 days, 24 hours a day, 48 hours is 2 days. So what, 96 hours is 4 days. We're at what, 48 to that? That'd be what, 138. And then that way we got 146. And then we add 24 to that. That'd be 166 and then 170, right? Something like that. It was 170, 176. I don't know. I'm off a little bit, I feel like. But whatever, it's somewhere around there, right? So we got that many hours in a week. 170, somewhere around there. And then you spending 3 to 4 hours a week in what you say is the kingdom. Or you say, well, the kingdom is at my home. We operate in kingdom at my house. Okay, question for you. When you finish waking up and taking a shower and making sure your children are going to school and taking yourself to work and then getting back and then picking them up from the babysitter and then getting back home and then finishing doing this and all this stuff, whatever, cooking, if you're going to do that, and then you spend 20, 30 minutes with them before they go to bed, possibly. And then if you have a spouse, hopefully somewhere in there, y'all fit some kind of at least glancing at each other before y'all turn over and just say good night and then go to sleep. How much percentage of kingdom is introduced there? How much kingdom do you think is in there? Kings and queens, I'm asking. Right? You see what I'm saying? We say we're kings and queens. Let me start asking you questions as monarchs then. King, queen. Is your environment set? Is your environment set for Sabbath? Can you afford? Remember, I said miracles are afforded. You got to be able to pay for a miracle. No, you don't have to pay for a miracle. No, like this miracle right here requires prayer and fasting. You got to be in a position where you pay. You talking about money? No, where's your time, your talent, your effort, your prayer, your energy, your gifts, your talents? Where's your tithe in that? Where's your talent in that? Before we can even get somewhere, what have you done to afford the miracle? What have you done to afford the kingdom? Well, the kingdom doesn't mean anything because the king, I don't have to pay anything because Yahshua, he bought me with the price. Okay, question. Then he bought you with the price. Do you follow his law? Or do you think that you can do whatever you want and sprinkle some Jesus on it? I mean, you want bang for your buck, but you ain't got no bucks. I made somebody there, but you know what? Hey, as long as I make the devil mad, right? As long as we shame the devil, you can be as mad as you want. You want bang for your buck, but where are your bucks? You want bang for your prayers. Where are your prayers? And do you even know what your prayers are supposed to be? When prayers are supposed to be communion or communication even with the Most High. How do you communicate with the King? If you were to go and visit the Queen of England, since most people know about that more so than their own chieftains and stuff like that. If you were to go visit the Queen of England right now, do you know what you're supposed to do before you're allowed to even get in the same room as her? You know how many rooms you have to go through before you even get to the room that allows you to be able to bow down before her? Do you know that you're supposed to bow down before her because you're not in your kingdom, you're in hers? This is why we got to learn this stuff, right? Your love, your heart, your passion, it develops. But what is your passion based on? Is it based on the kingdom? Once again, what is the kingdom? It's a king's domain. When you say Hadash Shamayim, what is Hadash? What is kingdom? When you talk about universal law, what is universe? A single spoken sentence. You talk about natural law, what is the nature of the person who spoke the universe into existence? And what qualifies you for kingdom? If the kingdom is in you, hallelujah. What qualifies you to carry it? What have you paid? Well, I'll have to pay it. Jesus paid it all, right? Jesus paid it. What is it? Jesus paid it all. All to him I owe, right? We love it. Yeah. Sin was such a crimson stain. He washed me white as snow. Sounds great and everything until it's like, okay, so he paid it all. So then it says in the Bible, it says you were bought with a price. It was still paid for, which means that now if it was bought with a price, whatever somebody bought, if I buy something, then I buy something and I expect something out of it. Now, I'm not saying I buy anybody in here with you or whatever, but let's say I sow and I don't have that much money to sow. Sometimes it's only 10, 20 bucks, whatever. But let's say we start getting to the point I'm sowing 100, 200 every once in a while to somebody. I sow $200 into you. Do you know that I expect you to be great with what you do? Take that 200 and sow into great things. If I sow a word into you, do you know? And I should. See, this is can I put on the pastor hat now, right? Right. Hopefully, if some people think I already had it on, but let me put on officially the pastoral hat if I can. If I sow a word into you, I expect greatness to come through that word. If I sow into your talent, I expect you to double up. That's love. If Yahweh gives me something, he expects me to double up. That's love. Yahweh expects me, once again, see what's miraculous to others is not miraculous to us. Yahweh expects me to have faith that things that other people think are miracles that will be done. Other people will think it's miraculous. If y'all can get land, it's miraculous. If y'all get that land like y'all talking about, that's miraculous. Then I'll sign up. Then I'll do that. Hey, that's fine, right? But some of us have a belief that even before the land happens, or even if it doesn't happen exactly the way we want it to, we have faith that it will happen. And so we live in that faith already. Now, somebody says, wait a minute, what you're talking about, this and that. I want to see where you're kind of getting that context from. I want to introduce something to you then. Introduce to some, reintroduce, or represent, so to speak, to others. But let me present something to you real quick. Uh, I'm going to go to where Thomas in the scripture, where it talks about Thomas, and he sees Yashua with the nails or with the holes in his hand. We're going to go to that scripture, okay? Because that's basically what was said. Until I see, he said, until I see the nails and stuff in his hands, I ain't going with y'all on anything. But he was the only person that didn't see anything, because he was like, man, whatever, y'all talking all this stuff or whatever. So he wasn't there when Yashua showed up, and so they said, hey Thomas, man, it happened just like it was. He said, man, until I see it, it ain't happened. That's what he said. So y'all talking all this and all that or whatever. I ain't see nothing. This is after the women that came and preached to them. For people that don't believe that they preached, it was the woman who was sent to the disciples. So Yashua trusted the woman with the word to give to the disciples. For those who say women can't preach, you can't teach, etc. Right? But let's go John chapter 20, verse 19. It says, Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen Adam, and he had spoken these things unto her. So those are the things that he said as far as, touch me not, for I have not ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, unto Elohim, my Elohim and your Elohim. Right? And when he said, woman, why thou weep, or weepest, why weepest thou? Women, seekest thou, or whom seekest thou? And et cetera, all that situation that happened, right? So he sends her, and she tells him, right? So now we hit verse 19. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, there were disciples shut where the disciples were assembled for fear or respect of the Israelites or the Hebrews. Then came Yashua and stood in the midst and saith unto them, peace be unto you. Right? Shalom. Came and said, shalom, shalom. And when he had so said, he showed unto them his hands and his side. Then were the disciples glad when they saw Adam. Then said Yashua to them again, peace be unto you, as my Father hath sent me, even so I send you. Whosoever sins ye remit, they are remitted unto them, and whosoever sins ye retain, they are retained. But Thomas, and that's where they try to get that whole thing, by the way, they try to go, see, so we're supposed to forgive sins and stuff like that, which is not exactly the context, right? But he's basically saying if you don't forgive, then then basically like you won't be forgiven. That's more so what he's saying. But nevertheless, let's keep on going verse, because we run out of time. Verse 24. But Thomas, right, was one of the 12, called Didymus, was not with them when Yashua came. The other disciples therefore said unto him, and by the way, that doesn't mean that it's only the 12. It just means there were disciples that were hiding away. So it could have been one of the 70, it could have been the 12. We don't know for sure. Just to make that known. And also we know one of the 12 is no longer with them, because the one who called Judas Iscariot, he would have hung himself by now. Right? So, but the other disciples therefore said unto him, we have seen Adam. But he said unto them, Thomas said unto them, except I shall see in his hands the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe. No problem, because I once was like this too. No problem. I get it. Like, until I see it, right? That's what happened with even Yashva's father, right? Or Yashva's stepfather. Hey, I'll put her away privately, but I don't got no evidence that shows me that she's just going to be pregnant out here without no reason, right? Verse 26 then comes up. And after 8 days, number eight representing Chet, wall of protection, things like that, also meaning new beginnings, right? So after 8 days, again, his disciples were within, and Thomas with them this time. So Thomas was with them, and Yashua came, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst and said, Peace be unto you. Then saith he to Thomas, Reach hither, so reach here, reach hither thy finger, and behold my hands, and reach hither thy hand, and thrust it into my side, and be not faithless, but believing. And Thomas answered and said unto him, now this is what the key is. This is what I want you to get. This is even the construct of faith as we get ready to take our leave. All right. But y'all who have hung in there this whole time, thank you for doing so. This is what I want us to take away as we get ready to take our leave. Then say it to and I'm sorry, verse 28 of John chapter 20. And Thomas answered and said unto him, Adon at Elohim. In other words, my Lord and my Elohim. Verse 29, Yahshua saith unto him, Thomas. And this is where you got to get it. Once again, what's miraculous to others, it becomes something that's normal for you. It's a process, but the more we're in this, the more the less miracles cease to amaze us. Miracles are not made to amaze us. Miracles are made to serve us, but we must at least sow faith, bare minimum. Watch this. Verse 29, Yahshua saith unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, physical, thou hast believed. He said, blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. That's what we're trying to develop. Just because you haven't seen all the stuff we're talking about, it doesn't mean you can't believe in it. Just because we haven't seen the land doesn't mean the land's not coming. Hallelujah. Just because you haven't seen debt-free doesn't mean you can't be debt-free. Just because you haven't seen a husband yet doesn't mean that husbands don't exist. Just because you have not seen a wife doesn't mean that the wife doesn't exist. Just because you haven't seen proper marriage in your life does not mean that you can't see proper marriage. And see, you got to look at that when you're dealing with our community, with our diaspora, Yashtel, as we get ready to take our leave here. You realize that you are the closest thing that somebody might have seen so far to what it is that they think doesn't believe. You are going to be the person, you're the conduit to help them to come from the system they're in, from the world, from this ghastly, vicious, beastly construct, and to come into a kingdom that has proper interpretation, that allows for proper construction. Salah, right? They haven't seen it yet, right? They haven't seen you be Romans 8:18 to where they need to see that the things that are going on now are worthy to be compared with what's going on. So then 8:19, that the creature is waiting to see the sons of Elohim manifest. They haven't seen somebody. I realize it. That's why I said when I do some one-on-ones with people and things of that nature, and I talk to people, I realize and recognize, real talk, I realize and recognize some things real quick where I'm just like, yo, I comprehend, I get it, that sometimes I've got to talk to somebody as a spiritual daughter or a spiritual son because they never had a spiritual father or a spiritual mother, right? Sometimes I got to talk to somebody and talk to them like a brother or a sister or a friend because they've never really had a true brother or sister or friend, right? Sometimes I got to talk to somebody and I have to talk to them as somebody who's humble because they've never met somebody who's humble. Sometimes I got to talk to somebody and talk to them as a king because they've never had somebody talk to them as a king. Sometimes I got to talk to somebody and I got to shut down what you're doing real quick and ask you to humble yourself because you've never had somebody who could love you while humbling you at the same time. So you've never tried to humble yourself. Sometimes I got to talk to you as somebody who was in prison, who made their way out, because you might have been in prison and been around people who are in prison and keep thinking you got to go back in, but you don't have to. You can be out. Sometimes I got to talk to you as somebody who doesn't even think that you can make it past suicidal thought, because I can tell you as somebody who's had suicidal thoughts that I found a way to be able to get out. Sometimes I got to talk to you as somebody who's been hooked on all manner of sugars and things like that and tell you my experience. Why? Because you might not think that somebody who's doing that can ever be in a position to help somebody out. Sometimes I've got to talk to you as somebody who's there. I've got to give you what? The holes. This is what Yashua did. This is the construct. In the world, they tell you, show you there's no holes. Go on a date with somebody. Don't tell them anything's bad with you. Don't tell them that you've had problems. Don't tell them that you've been in marriages. Don't tell them that you've had children. Don't let them put the holes in, don't show them the holes in your hand or tell them, but Yashua said, no, Thomas, come here. See, because you're in a position where you don't believe without seeing it. So let me help you to see. And I'm going to let you see my scars where I died for you. See that right there, Thomas? Put your hand right there. Put your finger, put it all the way in there, right? Put your finger in there, keep on putting it in, and keep on putting it in there, right? Put it in as far as you can go, right? You see my side, take your hand and put it in my side and put it in there as far as your hand can go. He said, you're blessed. He said, that's a great level. Be blessed on that level. He said, now here comes the next part though. All the things that I've been telling you. He said, because think about it. What he's really saying is, Thomas, I told you there's a whole lot more to come than just me having to come back to life. I told you what was going to happen when they try to attack you. I told you what's going to happen if you die in my name. I told you what's going to happen as far as the end of this world, Matthew 24. I told you to be prepared when I come back, like them 10 virgins, Matthew 25. I told you to make sure that you teach people to observe and to do all the things that I told you, because all power is in my hand. And make sure you baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in Matthew 28. I told you all these different things. I told you what's going to happen. Right? So there's some things you still haven't seen yet. I told you to preach this word, and that when you lift me up, if I be lifted up, I'll draw them in. But if you couldn't believe what you hadn't seen. So now, not only did I come back, but I'm going to make sure that I tell you that there's peace. And not only want to tell you there's peace, I'm going to tell you that there's peace in reaching into my past and reaching into my scars and reaching into where I've been. And now that I've shown you where I've been, who I've been, and what I've done for you, now I'm going to ask you to have faith from this point on. And sometimes that's all we can do. We can give you this, we can give you that, we can tell you this, we can have these lives, we can have these classes, but at some point, you've got to come out the construct and you got to begin to construct something based on the interpretation of the kingdom. And now it's on you to do greatness, to honor people, to love people, to respect each other. And to go with Elohim today and let it start today. Make a decision today that there's something specific that you can do today to be greater today than you were yesterday. And I'll touch and agree in prayer that all the things that you're doing and whatever we can do physically, I'm not in a position to do a whole lot, right? But whatever we can do, we will do. You'd be surprised sometimes just reaching out. There's people that we're dealing with who are homeless. There's people who we're dealing with that are sick. There's people that we're dealing with that are confused. There's people that we're dealing with that are, going in and out of things as far as mental health challenges and all this. Like, you'd be surprised things I'm dealing with, right? And all these things we're dealing with, though, we can at any time still be able to press on and move, right? At any time. We have the ability to be able to do so. Remember, what's miraculous to them and what might seem miraculous now, and you're waiting to see the holes to put in your finger in and the piercing to put your hand in. It might seem miraculous to you. At some point, it's going to be a thing to where what's miraculous to everybody else, that's just what we do. When they say that's creative, yeah, that's creative, but we are creative. Why would I be surprised by my creative power? We are joined together. Why would I be surprised? See, at one point, some of you might have been shocked by the unity that we have, not just on coming on lives, but by the fact that we check up on each other, we visit each other, we call each other, we send things to each other, and we take care of each other. But you've been along, as those of you who've been around long enough, it's not surprising anymore, is it? We do what we do. We love how we love. We operate how we operate. We respect how we respect. We check on each other, etc. So we thank you all. We appreciate you. Thank you for your time today. Remember, coming up. So as a reminder, we got class tonight. We got class tomorrow on Shabbat. This Saturday, we have our live at 8 a.m. Eastern, not like we normally do. We'll have our 10 o'clock service, Shabbat Shalom, on the podcast. Those who have marriage class will be on at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Those who are going to be part of the men's meeting, we do have that at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. There will not be a live biblical law class. There will be biblical law recording, but there will not be a biblical law class. Amen. So we just want to make that clear. There will be class. There will be a recording that comes out for those who are taking biblical law for Saturday. Matter of fact, that day is highlighted on the curriculum that we have in advance, right? It's because Master Solomon's born day. So we'll be celebrating his born day, but I will make sure that we do marriage class. I'm not sure if I'll be on the Zoom for the men's meeting, but I'm not sure how much I'll be talking or whatever, but we'll see however Yah leads us. And you guys keep us in prayer as we celebrate this born day. And men, we invite you to come out this Saturday, because this Saturday, this men's meeting we're going to be having, hey, it's going to be great. Father's Day is going to be the next day, Sunday. So those who want to roll with us a little bit or come out on the live or have something special to say, or if some of y'all aren't on the live because you're going to respect your fathers, your husbands, etc., maybe even as bad as this might seem or whatever, you know, you don't have to get back with them, but maybe even something as simple as, ladies, I know this might be difficult, and brothers, it's difficult when we ask you to do the same thing, but hey, ladies, this might be difficult, but maybe you want to reach out to, even if you're not with, and even if you don't plan on getting back with, but you might want to reach out to your child's father and give him respect, especially if he's doing something, even if y'all couldn't get it together. Hopefully, y'all are at least able to respect each other as human beings. That might be asking a little too much, but hey, forgiveness is it's kind of hard sometimes. But we're thankful. We appreciate you. We honor you. If I was just thinking, I didn't really put anything together specifically outside of the men's meeting, which I'm not really in charge of this Saturday, but I didn't really think. I mean, we'll have something on the live for you guys on that Sunday, but it's going to be Juneteenth tied into as well. So not sure what will be. I didn't really think it through. I don't know. Maybe we can do something specific for the fathers, as far as maybe even trying to put together something for you guys and send something out. You probably wouldn't get it by Sunday, but maybe we can do something. We didn't really do much for the mothers in that regard, so maybe next year we can have somebody in charge of that and make sure that we get that done and do a better job. I just realized we didn't do that, so that's on me. But thank you guys so much. We appreciate it, and you know, we honor you guys and we thank you, and we're grateful for you, and we hope that that you're growing and learning through these things. I know that I am, and I know that a lot of you have told us that you are as well. We appreciate you all. Please, once again, we pray that you take time out to look at these messages and you know, what you've listened to, study it, meditate on it, so you can be hearers and simultaneously be doers as well. We're thankful and appreciative of your time again, and we look forward to spending more time with you. A couple of people, like I said, I had some weird stuff going on my phone where it was going into like do not disturb mode, and I didn't know. So apparently, like, I missed whole texts and comments and messages and stuff from people. So I will try my best. I think there's only 2 to 3 people that I didn't get back to yesterday. So we'll try to fit that in the next couple of days. If I can't get back to you by Saturday, just give me a chance, because, you know, like I said, it's Saturday. Saturday is Solomon's born day. You know, and his sister Isabella, she actually had her born day stuff happen too, and then his big brother and second oldest, uh, Malcolm. I got, you know, when you can't remember their names, you got too many children. Malcolm, he had his thing. He just graduated this year, so he had his party and things like that. So just trying to send and do different things or whatever. But you know, this weekend just gonna be a lot going on. But we're thankful and grateful for you all, to you all, for being on. We're thankful and grateful for what the Most High is doing in your life. Please check out my wife, as always, the Honorable Maya. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish, for healing things as far as tinctures, things of that nature. I know there's somebody dealing with some stuff I won't put out in public, but I told you I would try to get an answer to you, so I'll try and have the answer. As far as what I knew about the stuff I texted you, I'm right about that. I just need to be able to take care of the first word. I told you what the last word meant. I need to figure out what the first word means again medically before I can give more information. And then from there, you know, hopefully, maybe if necessary, the Honorable Mind, you can have some further dialogue, and you guys can get that together. Other than that, thank you all. We appreciate you. I think that's all I have until live this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. So thank you, thank you, thank you again. Keep each other lifted up in prayer, and keep us lifted up in prayer. Is really, I guess, tomorrow. It's going to be a short, as soon as we finish class. Matter of fact, I don't know, I might not even be on the last class for the evening, because I'm going to be trying to sleep and get ready. So basically, like early Saturday in the middle of the night, or the middle of the morning, or the beginning of the morning, however, rising, however you want to look at it, we're going to be on our way from, or, you know, headed to where Solomon's destination is, his surprise destination. So y'all keep us in prayer, and we're looking forward to doing that. We're grateful, and we're excited, and hopefully you guys continue to do well. Thank you for doing prayer stuff. I actually got in touch with the leadership to let them know that prayer was going to be a little bit issue for me, because I needed to pray and be on one accord and be ready for the stuff that we did. So prayerfully, you guys can see that we put some effort into the stuff. And thank you, ministerial staff, specifically Minister Nice, but I know the other ministers stepped in and held it down. So thank you for doing what y'all always do. And we look forward to many great things to come. So thank you all. We appreciate you. And As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until we have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, Yastel, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Talk to you later.